Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ted Santos. You know me, and it's Friday. And Fridays I do YouTube and chill. I mean, actually on Instagram also, but it's Fridays. We get to kind of sit back, relax, chill. I usually take on topics that could be relaxing, yes, funny, entertaining, but they always have some sort of sexual connotation. Somewhere there's involves sex and intimacy. It's about sex and intimacy. That's what YouTube and chill is about. Sex and intimacy. And as you see, the topic tonight definitely has to have some sex involved. So I come to you Friday nights and really to have a conversation about sex and intimacy from a man's perspective, and not a guy who's big on politics, and uh, I have a perspective about that. But we're going to skirt right on the edges of politics. We're going to get into policy, and we're going to talk about something that's pretty hot in the news. And I'm wondering, what are the implications for this? This is not going to be so cut and dry as people may think it is. And when I look at politics, I always say follow the money. So uh, I like to offer a perspective that's not commonly discussed. And while this abortion in Texas is very hot in the news, you guys know I like to do screen shares. I always like to stay away from giving my opinion. And I want to let you know what the experts are saying, what's really happening out there. And then we can discuss this and we can look at it from there's several different perspectives. And I haven't seen it discussed in the news. I have some concerns and I have some thoughts. You guys know in 2018, it would have been hell. I'm coming up on 3 years. And in October of 2018, I started a podcast called Straight Talk. It's a talk show made for men by men. And surely it's a place women can learn. They can learn things about men that they didn't know they didn't know. All the things men were shy about telling you because we didn't want to hurt your feelings. So it's like this show from a man's perspective. And I started that uh, with the intent to offer perspectives that are not commonly discussed, politically incorrect, touchy topics, sensitive topics. And in this one, Friday YouTube and chill is a more of a intimacy, and it definitely educational. I like to do a screen share so that I don't, as I said, don't have to like spit out my opinion of things. Let's see what's really happening out there. And then I like to give perspectives that just are not commonly addressed in the media, in the barbershops, dinner parties. So on Fridays, when we talk about sex, I think we live in a nation that was founded on, well, I know we were founded on this Puritan culture, and no one ever dug up that culture and destroyed it, buried it somewhere, and poured gasoline on it and burned it. We haven't done that. So the Puritan culture is still very much alive hundreds of years later. So there are certain topics that are uncomfortable. And I understand some people will attempt to overcompensate and say I can talk about freakish things, but really talking about sex from an intimate and mature adult perspective, I think doesn't happen enough. Even if you're in public having a conversation about sex on your cell phone, people get offended by that. So, with so much social media and YouTube being a platform where you can discuss things, I, I like to talk about sex. So it's Friday night and we talk about YouTube, and here on YouTube and Chill, we talk about sex, intimacy, and we always do it from a man's perspective. And tonight we're going to talk about this new law and this new policy in Texas. And I'm asking, I have quite a few questions, but this topic could even have a subtopic. So you see the title here is, will the new abortion laws change the US? Will it change anything about the US? Our culture, sexuality, uh, any other laws? Will it affect other laws? Like, what are the implications of this Supreme Court decision about abortion in Texas? And I'll talk more about it. I'll read an article or two. I'll show some clips of videos where they're talking about it, and what the implications could be for other states in the US that are also looking at this, right? Some say this is a very conservative move. But I think there are some other implications that are just not being addressed in the news. So the other uh, topic, and I was saying that I started Straight Talk 3 years ago, and in starting that, one of the things that I heard men saying about abortion, and I personally hadn't really thought or even cared about it. Uh, so the subtopic for this is, will the new Texas abortion laws change, or the subtopic is, should men have equal say when it comes to abortion? I mean, that's something. That's a really important topic, and I think it just gets overlooked. It's almost as if we look at men as having no role in the creation of a new life. It's like women take it as though, uh, I did this all by myself, and they could abort or keep the child without any consent from a man. So, what is this? What is this going to mean for the rest of the country, since Texas is saying no abortions after 6 weeks? What's going on, country boy? Good evening. Yeah, yeah, a lot of men really do think men should have equal say, and they just don't, when it comes to abortion. Very interesting. So I'll tell you what some of my, well, for the show, will the new Texas abortion laws change the U.S.? Some of my thoughts were, the question I pose is intentionally ambiguous. The new abortion law in Texas will affect the U.S. in several ways. The question is, are all of those changes good? That's another concern I have. Some of the changes are obvious. We'll talk about that. Others are not. Let's discuss them, including the man's right to decide a child's life, since the child possesses half his DNA. So, just a few of the questions I had revolving around this, and we'll discuss this. And you don't hear it in any of the clips that are played, but I think these questions are in the background. So, one of them is the dominant population in the US, and we're going to look at that from a couple of perspectives. Another second one is, what if men want to have the child? Should men have say over an unborn child's life? Three, what should happen to women that steal a man's sperm? Is it theft? What penalties? There's this you hear people say possession is 9/10. We're going to look at that also. And is this path, this new Texas law, is this the path to draconian laws? So those are some of the things that I'd like to discuss. And if there are any things that you all think are relevant for this topic, drop those questions in the chat if you'd like to jump in and join this conversation and talk about abortion. I mean, like I said, I almost never personally discuss politics. You guys know I love doing this sort of panel, a panel discussion style. So some people bring up topics, but it's just something I've stayed away from. Um, what we're bordering on that because we're talking about policy now, and maybe the other conversation is uh, who will this abortion law in Texas benefit? And we're going to get into that also. So, policies don't just go into place sort of blindly and airy fairy. You better believe someone thought about it, and there's some benefit, there's economic benefit somewhere. And it could have political benefits or implications as well. But I think there's more to this than what we're seeing. We're just seeing this policy about abortion, and some guys may see, now you see how men feel, right? And that's a valid statement to say, because women say my body, my choice, and men have no choice in the matter at all. So women will now get kind of a sensation of men. And I know women will say, well, I've got to carry it for 9 months. And yeah, I understand. And your body goes through the changes. But we really kind of invalidate men, the role they play in a new life coming into the world, and even how it affects a man emotionally. We just kind of discard men. So we're going to take this on from a new perspective. So as you come into this room, smash that like button. I always love your participation. So all of your chats, I see you in there, country boy, and I'll get to some of those. But your comments in the chat are always great to engage me. If, like I said, if someone would like to come in, let me know. I'll drop a link so you can join. I'll drop my PayPal and Cash App links in there. Your support is always greatly appreciated. I have a huge commitment to always offer value. So my commitment is for the power of men to come back. A quick side topic. You see what's happening in China. Any images of men that are less than masculine, they're not allowed on television. So it seems China also has a commitment to the power of men. That's how you build strong nations. So I have a huge commitment to the power of men, and I like to give men a platform and a place to speak and express themselves as men, not as defective girls who have ADD. Like, this is where men get to speak, and sometimes we're aggressive. If you guys were here Sunday, you would have seen that live. But also for women, so many people grow up without a father, and a lot of women don't really understand how men communicate. So you're asking men to be feminine when we're not. So, I create this platform so men can do that. And women, it's a great educational place. I encourage you to ask questions, even if you hate the topic or even if you dislike me personally. So in a few seconds, I'm going to do a screen share. Yeah, country, though, boy, that's a problem. They choose the wrong guys to get pregnant, right? And they just abort it. But we're going to get beyond just that. We're looking at the whole big picture. There's a lot here. That's one aspect that you're talking about, where we really want to look at everything, and there are implications here. Yep. So So let's look at what the actual law is. So for some of you who don't know that this law has been passed, let's address that first so we can get everyone up to speed here. So I'll do a screen share. And this is one of the world's reputable media sources, the New York Times. And the article says answers to questions about the Texas abortion law. So guys, smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, this is a perfect chance to do that. Hit the subscribe, smash the bell so that you're notified of any videos that I put out. If you haven't subscribed to my Patreon, there's a link in the description. Excellent opportunity to click on that link. I have some videos that have never been shown there. And I see you guys in the house and Instagram. And abortion, while it's discussed often in the U.S., as you see in this article, we're accustomed to seeing the protesters, pro-life, pro-choice, all of these conversations we have. I'd like to take this on as men, and I invite the ladies to join us and give us your perspectives. But we want to have a man-sized conversation about abortion. So first, let's get you up to speed. What's going on, Chaos, for you? What's up? So let's see what they say about it. So we're going to get just what are they saying about abortion? This is the New York Times. Abortion answers to the questions about the Texas abortion law. The law prohibits abortions before many women even know they're pregnant, and it will be hard to challenge in the courts. This was written 2 days ago, Wednesday, September 1st. Roni Karen Rabin is the journalist, and the article starts: a Texas law banning most abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy went into effect on Wednesday, despite the 1973 Supreme Court decision that established a constitutional right to the procedure, making the state the most restrictive in the nation in terms of access to abortion services. So yes, Texas is known to be a very conservative state, but I'm going to show you some statistics that will shine a different light on why Texas is being so aggressive about making this law, putting it into effect. The article continues: other states have passed similar laws, but those measures face legal challenges. The Texas law is the first to be implemented. On a vote of 5-4, the court refused just before midnight on Wednesday to block the law. Because of the way the law was written, it may be difficult to challenge in court, representing a sea change in the battle over abortion rights and inviting imitation by other jurisdictions seeking to tamp down access to abortion. These laws are unconstitutional, as we have understood Supreme Court rulings until now, and courts have quickly issued preliminary injunctions blocking enforcement, said Elizabeth Nash, state policy analyst for Guttmacher Institute, a research organization that supports abortion rights. This is the first one that has gone into effect, she added. This is huge in that respect. Here are answers to a few common questions about the new legislation. So if you had any questions about this, let's answer that. And then I'm going to show a few video clips. And it's interesting to see the media. This is pretty hot off the press. I mean, this article was written just this Wednesday when the Supreme Court met. So the first question is the law a complete ban on abortions? The law bars abortions once cardiac activity can be detected in the embryo. This typically occurs around the 6th week of pregnancy. This is very early in a pregnancy, and many women do not know they are pregnant at that point. By the time a pregnant woman misses her period, she is 4 weeks pregnant, as doctors usually define it. Under the Texas law, then, a woman would have about 2 weeks to recognize her condition, confirm the pregnancy with a test, make a decision about how to manage the pregnancy, and obtain an abortion. I mean, that sounds like a woman who knows she wants an abortion, right? I mean, there are women who do it that fast. Many women may not track their periods carefully, may have irregular cycles, or may not know the exact date of the start of their last period, experts noted. Yeah, there are lots of women who don't keep track well on their periods. Uh, some guys do, because when their woman starts to act a little bit different, emotional, they can calculate what may be going on. Hey, everything's been good. I see you taking a break, huh? Cool, cool, cool. Oh, you're in Texas, where all this is going down. So, how are people taking this down there in Texas? Chaos. Just curious. What any uh is it hot? Is it a hot topic? Are people talking about it? Is there any upset? What's going on, Tony G? Oh, that's a great question. Let me see if I can find that information, Tony G. But that is a great question. But and for Texas particularly, and as they're saying, there are other states who are probably going to imitate. I think there's more to this, and you'll be able to connect the dots to other things, right? So this law is beyond just. I'm asserting this. And this is the reason I decided to do this show, right? I saw this and I thought about some of the implications. So this is long-term thinking. Uh, yeah, it's a block, or at least a way of buying time. That's a good way for me to put it. It's a way to buy time. Okay. So the article goes on, and this is still under the question: is the law a complete ban on abortions? It is extremely possible and very common for people to get to the 6-week mark and not know they are pregnant, said Dr. Jennifer uh, Villavicencio, lead for equity transformation at the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. The cardiac activity detected on ultrasound is not a true heartbeat, Dr. Villavicencio added. It results from the electrical activity, but the valves of the heart have not yet formed, and the sound does not indicate the pregnancy is viable, she said. Interesting. So it looks like they're going to try and have a uh, medical legal debate about this and try to expand this beyond the 6 weeks. Interesting. Um, Goes on to say, forcing them to find out about pregnancy and make a decision about how to manage it in a short period of time is antithetical to ethical care, said Dr. Villavicencio. Next question is: does the law make exceptions for pregnancies resulting from rape or incest, or to protect the life of the mother? The law does not make exceptions for rape or incest. It does permit all abortions for health reasons, but the exceptions are narrowly drawn, allowing a termination only if the pregnancy could endanger the mother's life or lead to substantial irreversible impairment of a major bodily function, Miss Nash noted. There are very narrow exceptions, she said, and the language does not cover every instance in which a woman's health might be at risk. Nonetheless, she added, health providers will be very conservative about interpreting the law because they don't want to cross the line. Interesting. Okay. The next question is, doesn't Roe versus Wade guarantee a woman's right to abortion? Can the Texas law be challenged on constitutional grounds? The Texas law bars state officials from actually enforcing it. Hear that again. The Texas law bars state officials from actually enforcing Roe versus Wade, a design intended to make it difficult to challenge in the courts. Usually, a lawsuit aiming to block such a law as unconstitutional names state officials as defendants. Instead, the Texas law deputizes private citizens to sue anyone who performs an abortion or aids and abets a procedure. Plaintiffs who have no connection to the patient or the clinic may sue or recover legal fees as well as $10,000 if they win. Now, this is a really interesting aspect of it. They say even if you are a Lyft or Uber driver and you drive a woman to an abortion clinic, you can be fined. The article goes on to say, as a result, the question for the Supreme Court is not whether the law is constitutional, but whether it can be challenged in court. So they're saying it can't be challenged in court. Uh, the most restrictive in the country, the Texas abortion law, known as Senate Bill 8, amounts to a nearly complete ban on abortion in the state. It prohibits most abortions after about 6 weeks of pregnancy and makes no exceptions for pregnancies resulting from incest or rape. So, next question. Does Texas now have the most restrictive abortion law in the nation? Other states, including Georgia, Mississippi, Kentucky, and Ohio, have also passed heartbeat laws that ban abortion once cardiac activity can be detected on an ultrasound scan. Those laws would also ban abortions about 6 weeks of. Those laws would also ban abortions at about 6 weeks of pregnancy, 18 weeks earlier than the legal standards set by Roe versus Wade, which allows abortions up to 24 weeks. 24 weeks, right? That's almost 6 months. Roughly the point when a fetus can survive outside the womb. But those state laws have been held up by legal challenges and have not been implemented. Abortion providers in Texas estimate that 85% of patients seeking abortion are at least 6 weeks pregnant and would be denied care under the new state law. Very interesting, right? We have a little bit more to go on this. Right. So, right. Should we? Yeah. Actually, I don't want to jump around on this. So, but yeah, purposely ending life, right? Murder. Yep. Chaos for you. Yep. Yep. murder. Next question is, does Texas now have the most, I read that, who will be most affected by the Texas law? There are 7 million women of childbearing age in Texas, and the law will make it more difficult for all of them to obtain abortions in the state as legislators intended. But the measure will create nearly insurmountable obstacles for certain vulnerable populations, abortion providers said. Among them, teenagers who often don't realize they are pregnant until later in the pregnancy, low-income people who need to find about $550 to cover the cost of the procedure, and people of color, including undocumented immigrants. About 70% of abortions in Texas in 2019 were provided to women of color, according to the Guttmacher Institute. 70%. Ooh. Texas requires minors to obtain permission from a parent or guardian to gain access to abortion care. Some minors must go to court to do so, adding to delays, said Roseanne Maria Purim, executive director of Jane's Due Process in Austin, Texas, which helps teenagers get abortions. Wow. A whole organization set up just to help teenagers get abortions. Very interesting. Camyon Connor, the executive director of the Texas Equal Access Fund, which helps low-income women pay for abortions, said she was particularly concerned about the new law's potential impact on Black women in Texas who already face high maternal mortality rates. I know a woman who's a gynecologist, and she was telling me the reason so many, well, this is not saying that, but there are statistics out there that say Black women are more likely to die giving birth than others. And this Black gynecologist said the reason that happens is because there are too many overweight Black women. The complications come from being overweight. But that's sort of a side conversation. So let's get on with this. The article continues, undocumented women cannot travel easily around the state to get access to care, she added, and women with chronic illnesses can find a pregnancy life-threatening. So that's the end of that article. So that gives you sort of a broad stroke as to what this new abortion law is about. And, many are saying that while it started in Texas, the way it's written, there's a good chance it's going to spread, especially to neighboring states. I think Oklahoma is already looking at this. So let's see. Okay. So let's hear a few words direct from the
Swish this sour lip.
Supreme Court here. Give me a second, guys. But I first want to sort of lay out, and let's look at this, and then we're going to look at it from very different perspectives. Chaos for you, right? So they're undocumented. Why are they getting, what are they getting? Free abortions? Like, who pays for that? Yeah, chaos for you. Yep. No, hey, country boy, a lot of them are dying because they're overweight. And being overweight causes complications. That's what was told to me by a gynecologist. And that's a woman who had been practicing medicine for 30 years. So that's her medical, her professional opinion, I'll say. So let's look at what the Supreme Court rejects challenge to Texas abortion law. So let's see what they say about the Supreme Court and this law. Just giving a little more information so that we can talk about this from different perspectives, because I think it's bigger And I do have a concern about some of the implications. This is not going to be as cut and dry as we think. And yeah, so depending on what side of the fence you are, if you're pro-life, you're all for this law. If you're pro-choice, you may have a problem with it. But I think the implications are bigger than both of those. And what's going on, Leaf Poetry? Good to see you in the house. So let's move on with this one.
Into that Supreme Court ruling overnight that will now allow the new abortion law in Texas to stand, effectively banning nearly all abortions in that state. President Biden calling the law an unprecedented assault on a woman's constitutional rights, vowing to fight. ABC's Rachel Scott from Texas tonight.
24 hours after the nation's toughest anti-choice law went into effect, doctors and advocates we spoke to say abortions in Texas have all but stopped.
And this is going to be interesting. They've stopped. Under Free Use Act, I'm using this only for educational purposes. This is the critique and have a much more profound understanding about a law that was just passed. So under Free Use Act, I'm showing this.
You've already had to turn women away. You've had to deny abortions.
Yep, that's right.
At this Planned Parenthood center in Houston, Dr. Baba Kumar normally performs between 20 to 30 abortions a day.
Do you hear that? This guy performs 20 to 30 abortions a day. And this just came out just yesterday. This video is from yesterday, September 2nd. Now listen to what's happened since this law was passed on Wednesday, the very next day.
Since the new law, he's only seen 6 patients.
Since the new law, he's only seen 6. That's huge. It doesn't mean these women are not getting the abortions, though. So let's continue.
And had to turn half of them away.
Just yesterday, I saw somebody who thought she was earlier in the pregnancy. She was crying. And we began to explore options and think through the logistics of if she would be able to go out of state for the care that she needed.
The new law bans abortions after about the 6th week of pregnancy, before most women even know they're pregnant. In fact, abortion rights activists tell us nearly 90% of women seeking abortions here are past their 6th week. Part of what makes this law so unique is that it deputizes private citizens to sue anyone who aids and embeds an unlawful abortion, from doctors who perform them to drivers who take women to the clinic. Those citizens could then collect a bounty of at least $10,000.
You hear that? You can collect a bounty and you can go after the Lyft driver, the doctor, anyone who participated in the abortion. This is, this has other implications, but this is, that's kind of intense. Like here in New York, if you go on the subways, they say if you see something, say something, right? So this is getting all the citizens involved. And this is a reporting on anyone and everyone who is breaking the law. So it's not just the police, it's not the lawmakers, it's not the policymakers. The average citizen can get paid if they report someone who violated the law. What's going on, Big 125? This is, I want to say unprecedented. Maybe it's not, but this is huge. There are other implications in this. Yeah, now I wonder. So, Leaf Poetry, are you all talking about this? And over there, down under, or even in New Zealand, is this being discussed? And how do you all deal with abortion? Your country is pretty liberal over there.
Our creators endowed us with the right to life, and we're about to make it law.
Overnight, the Supreme Court refused to put the law on hold as legal challenges work their way through the system. Even though the justices found serious questions about its constitutionality, 5 conservative justices voted to let it go forward anyway, saying there are complex and novel procedural reasons for why it could not be blocked at this stage. 4 justices, including conservative Chief Justice John Roberts, dissenting, Justice Sonia Sotomayor calling the majority's decision stunning, calling the law flagrantly unconstitutional. Now, most women seeking abortions in Texas are forced to travel to other states. This clinic in neighboring Oklahoma usually schedules appointments for 15 women a day. Since the law in Texas, that number has more than doubled.
So it didn't stop women in Texas from getting abortions. As this just said, they just go to Oklahoma. They go to a neighboring state. That's all that's going to happen. They just have to drive a lot further. Hey, hey, I see you in the house, Sudata. Thanks for joining. Yeah, Australia's done. Yeah, Sudata, you get what I'm getting at, right? 1984. Australia's done. What do you mean by that? Smash the like button, guys, if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't done that.
For a 5 to 10 minute procedure to drive 600 miles in the middle of a pandemic. It's cruel.
David, President Biden called this law extreme, but at this point, there is very little the president can do about it. The fact is, there is a conservative majority on the bench. Former President Donald Trump was able to appoint 3 justices to the bench, and this week, all 3 of those justices were in favor of letting that law go forward.
Hey, chaos for you. Yeah, they drove 600 miles. That it's an inconvenience. That's a woman who's committed to getting rid of that child, like flat out, not dealing with it. I mean, that's a hell of a mission to be on, right? Well, as I think Chaos for you said, red states, they'll take this next. They'll be the first ones to follow.
David?
All right, Rachel Scott in Texas for us. Rachel, thank you. Of course, this has been a decades-long fight ever since the Roe versus Wade decision in 1973. Let's bring in Terry Moran, who has covered the Supreme Court for years for us. And Terry, for decades, this has really been a theoretical argument. What could happen if the Supreme Court suddenly leans significantly one way or the other? This 5-4 ruling overnight, but Chief Justice John Roberts, a conservative himself, of course, signaling a willingness of some sort of a compromise, but conservatives, 3 of them, Rachel just mentioned them, relatively new to the court, didn't buy his argument.
They didn't. That was so striking, David. Chief Justice John Roberts, he's just 10 or 15 years older than the 3 justices appointed by Donald Trump. But those 10 or 15 years, they mark a huge difference in the Republican Party, the difference between Bush Republicans and Trump Republicans. And the Chief Justice did want the court to take more time to consider what he called an unprecedented law. He lost the votes of those conservatives, and it looks like this will mark the end of what's called the Roberts Court.
And one more quick question for you, Terry. Bottom line here, Texas would appear to be just the first state to do this. A number of other states already signaling they might follow this blueprint, particularly when they see how unique this law is, actually deputizing private citizens.
That's it, David. That's the trick that makes this law so different and so difficult for courts to get a handle on. By deputizing private citizens, it makes enforcement a matter of private lawsuits. And right away, that clever innovation has been picked up. Governor Ron DeSantis and Republican legislators in Florida saying they plan to introduce laws also in Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, slowly, basically eliminating the right to choose an abortion across the country in the coming months.
David? Terry Moran live at the Supreme Court for us again tonight. Terry, thank you.
So that is giving you a perspective on Supreme Court. You know, under the Fair Use Act, I am showing these so that we can be educated about what's really going on. And I saw some great questions. So right, yeah, Australia, yeah, forced vax, right? Yeah, yep. So women, from what I know, I remember seeing a woman, wasn't my child, but a woman I knew. The day she had gotten an abortion, I saw her that day, and she couldn't really even talk to me. and she was in her 20s, early 20s. Like she was. So I don't know any a woman at any age. Uh, I don't I can't speak. I've seen women who were young who are distraught um, after an abortion. I haven't seen every woman in the world after an abortion, but I've seen more than one, and yeah, it's not a ride in the park for them, man. It's not. They have all the guilt of I just murdered. They go through all of that. They go through that. Do they suffer grief and guilt? That's a good question. So I've heard of women saying, if I didn't get an abortion, like there's a woman when I was really small, I was young. I remember this woman had gotten an abortion, and it was twin girls, and she had sons, and she always wanted daughters. And years later, she was still talking about the twin girls that she aborted and what could have been. Um, so yeah, does it have an impact? For sure, man, for sure. It doesn't just go away. And when I was younger, I remember they used to say women could only get a certain amount of abortions, but I've heard of women having unreal amounts of abortions. Like they use it like it's birth control. See, that's an interesting, right? My body, my choice, right? Um, with the vaccine, what about that? What's going on, Ben Allen? Thanks for joining, man. Yeah, chaos. Only when they want to abort. It's my body, my choice for the vaccine. And I've got some reports from Australia. I'm going to read them in a second. Damn, 17 chaos. That's it. That's going to create physical damage. Oh, wow, wow, wow. That's 17 abortions. That's that's irresponsible. God, man. There's so many birth control choices. What's going on, Robstagram? Um, so I've got someone listening from Australia right now. Let me tell you what she said. Australia and New Zealand, correct, are more liberal. Australia enforced additional financial requirements to getting the procedure done, but in general, very liberal and accepting of abortion. Australia and New Zealand are for vaccination. That's a whole other topic. To travel, to work, vaccinations will become mandated or will become mandatory. I have a friend who was raped, though she had an abortion, is still emotionally, mentally damaged for her, damaged her for years, still does. Yeah. So and this is a woman in Australia who's hey Sudata, thank you, man, for the Cash App. Sudata, thanks very much, man. Appreciate the support. Always love when you come in. Great comments and great support from you. So thank you for that. So there's an answer to a question. So I I would say when a woman gets an abortion, it doesn't just go away. She might be able to have other children unless she has too many. And there's some women who get an abortion and then that was their last shot. They can't get pregnant after that. They keep having miscarriages. So, you know, a woman's body is sensitive like a thermometer. You just can't abuse it like that. So there are consequences. And there are different forms of birth control. God. Hey, yeah, chaos for you, right? Birth control is not 100%, not a condom, not the pill. Uh, what is the IUD? Uh, none of them are 100%. So I think there was another video I wanted to. So let me share what the
Attention foodies, with this fusion of
governor of Texas, let's hear what he has to say about it. And then we're going to look at what some of the other surrounding states are saying. And then we're going to jump into some of the other implications here. These are all pretty short videos. Texas governor. And this is Texas governor from yesterday. Once again, hot off the press, man. Hot, hot, hot. Glad to have you watching from Australia. If you didn't know what was happening already.
So I do want to get to the news that you are joining us about, which is some of these new technological and innovation-based investments in your.
So this is the an interview under the Fair Use Act. CNBC is interviewing the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, and she's going to address this new law about abortion with him and listen to his responses. Very interesting. So yeah, and yeah, I'm glad you guys are checking me out on Instagram. If you want to be able to see this, the screen share, you can. I'm over on YouTube doing a screen share, or you can listen. You'll hear it all just as clearly as everyone else. So let's let it roll.
Your state, specifically around a startup called Gaddick, which is autonomous trucking. That being said, I think we would be remiss if we didn't ask about several of these major topics that are in the news more broadly right now that have become not only the subjects of debate and controversy politically and socially, but for corporate America as well. And I want to start with that so-called heartbeat bill that is being implemented in your state. Forbes is out with a survey with a headline that 2/3 of college-educated workers may avoid Texas now because of this abortion ban. What's your response?
So you do see some publications who try to categorize the Texas business environment based upon the positions that the Texas legislature takes. However, the truth of the matter shows something completely different. The Federal Reserve puts out a report every single month that shows the mobility of people moving from one state to another. Month after month after month, including the most recent month, shows that people are choosing to move to Texas more than any other state in the United States, and it's not even close. And so, regardless of some hand-wringing by some publications, the people who are not wringing their hands are the people who create jobs, that run businesses, that care about their daily lives. And people are choosing Texas over any other state. And part of that is because of our low regulations, our no income tax. In fact, we constitutionally banned an income tax in the state of Texas, but we have a terrific business climate, which is exactly why Gaddick, for example, chose to come to the state of Texas and improve its mobile innovation. And so companies are choosing Texas because it has the superior business climate.
So interesting. The governor of Texas is standing for this, standing by this new policy, like hands down. He's not backing off, and he's telling them that it has no impact. So the interviewer on CNBC is saying, well, this law is going to scare young women, college graduates from moving there. And he's like, no, absolutely not. The companies are coming, the people are coming, jobs are coming. and everyone is still coming to Texas. So, yeah, they seem to be pretty firm about this. They're not backing down.
I totally understand that. And certainly Texas consistently ranks high on CNBC's list of top states for business, but right or wrong, for better or worse, I mean, you do have businesses that have not been shy to react to some of these political or social topics as of late, be it whether it's the abortion situation, whether it is some of the voting laws that are being implemented. We've certainly seen that happen in Georgia. I know you're in the process of implementing some voting reforms in Texas as well that are getting a lot of attention. Maybe it's because of their workforces, maybe it's because of investors insisting on ESG, but aren't you worried that some of the major employers in your state are going to respond negatively or potentially pull investment or donation dollars in light of some of these topics?
So first, again, we continue to see a massive influx of these employers coming in the state of Texas because, candidly, not only do they like the business environment, but Morgan, you need to understand that there's a lot of businesses and a lot of Americans who like the social positions that the state of Texas is taking. It's very important that I address one thing that you raised because it kind of explains part of this process. You raised the issue about the election integrity law that did just pass the Texas legislature and that it will be signing. And if you go back a few months in time, back when Major League Baseball moved its all-star game out of Atlanta, and there was a big to-do in the state of Texas between Texas as well as Major League Baseball about that, as well as some big companies in the state of Texas that came out and criticized the state of Texas for the position that we were taking. But Morgan, this is important. When they learned the facts of what the election integrity law does in the state of Texas, they realized that Texas was adding more time to vote. Texas was making it easier to vote than before the law passed. Let me just give you one quick example, and that is Texas has almost 2 weeks of early voting to make it very easy for people to vote. And in the president's home state of Delaware, they have 0 days of early voting. So it's far easier for people to vote in Texas or even in New York than it is in so many other places. And so if people look at the facts, they realize, wait a second, Texas really is a well-governed state.
So I just want to put a fine point on this. Are you saying that all of these policies are actually helping to bolster business right now?
Again, people vote with their feet, and this is not slowing down businesses coming to the state of Texas at all. In fact, it is accelerating the process of businesses coming to Texas, particularly, Morgan, interestingly, they are leaving the very liberal state of California. And I got to tell you, whether it be Elon Musk, who I talk to frequently, Elon had to get out of California because in part of the social policies in California, and Elon consistently tells me that he likes the social policies in the state of Texas.
Interesting, huh? Social policies in Texas, and this abortion law, without question, is a social policy.
Look,
So now let's look at what some of the other, guys, bear with me. I just want you to have the facts so that we can have a better understanding of what's happening and some of the implications, and then we're gonna get into what some of the long-term consequences could be from this one law.
This is the most restrictive abortion law in the nation that's been allowed to go into effect.
Millions of children lose their right to life every year because of abortion.
The Texas law says that a woman can't have an abortion after 6 weeks or when a quote fetal heartbeat close quote is detected. But instead of government officials enforcing this law, it leaves it up to private citizens to do so, to bring civil litigation against anyone who aids or abets such an abortion.
The most pernicious thing about the Texas law, it sort of creates a vigilante system.
While the woman herself would not be the subject of these lawsuits, anyone else, a friend, a family member, the person who does the abortion is liable. The person who brings it can recover $10,000 or more, as well as lawyer costs. Abortion providers and civil rights groups challenged this law, saying that it was unconstitutional because Roe v. Wade allows a woman the right to an abortion up to the point of fetal viability. In other words, it says states can't put restrictions on that right that cause an undue burden. Providers and the civil rights groups went to court to try to stop the law from going into effect. But this law was basically designed to keep federal courts from intervening. And it says that those kind of challenges will have to come in state court. And so a federal court declined to stop the law. And then the providers and the clinics went to the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to step in. Republican-led states have been passing all sorts of restrictions on abortion, even to the point of saying that abortion would not be allowed in those states. But all of those can't go into effect because of the Supreme Court's decision nearly 50 years ago in Roe v. Wade. But still, states are passing these laws. They see them as test cases. They want to get the issue before the Supreme Court again. Texas is the first state to actually get its law implemented. There is already efforts in other states to copy what Texas has done because of its success in avoiding federal court intervention. Georgia is talking about it. Florida is talking about it. And so I think that we'll see more and more of these. Abortion providers have said that the Supreme Court's decision to let this law go into effect effectively ends Roe v. Wade protections in Texas. And there is something to be said about that, at least until the state courts there have looked at the law. But there is a case coming that directly asks the Supreme Court to review its decision in Roe v. Wade. That's a law from Mississippi. It would restrict abortions after 15 weeks. That's in direct conflict with Roe's guarantee that a woman has a right to an abortion before fetal viability. The court will hear that case in late fall, and it is one in which the issue of whether to overturn Roe will be presented quite directly to this newly energized conservative majority on the Supreme Court.
So other states, especially your red states, your Republican states, are probably going to be jumping on this rather quickly. And someone, I think the last video said you're setting up a vigilante culture. If you are a Lyft driver, I saw an article that said that if you're a Lyft driver, Lyft said they are going to pay. They are encouraging their drivers to take women to the clinic, and if you get fined, their Lyft will pay for it. So Lyft is against this. They are. I'll quickly share this so you guys see. Not my opinion. This is CNBC online. The title of the article is Lyft will cover legal fees for drivers sued under Texas abortion law. Lyft will cover legal fees for drivers on its platform who are sued under Texas's restrictive abortion law that went into effect this week. The law allows people to prosecute rideshare drivers for transporting women to clinics to receive abortions where they could be fined $10,000. Lyft said its defense fund would cover 100% of legal fees. It will also donate $1 million to Planned Parenthood. So that's where Lyft stands on this. So I guess Lyft is rather liberal. They are encouraging their drivers to take people. We'll cover it. Yeah, Tony G. Yeah, you're right with me. And that's an interesting one, country boy, right? So if women decide to just have the child, no abortion, you're on your own, no child support. If you want it, if you really wanted that child, right? Because you could have avoided being pregnant. So, I had, so when I first read this, when I saw this and started, reading things, snooping around, my initial thought was, this is bigger than abortion. Like you said, Tony G, I want to get to the social parts now. So, Tony G, what are companies signaling? Hey, yeah, you saw that too, Chaos for You. Lyft donating $1 million to Planned Parenthood. Very interesting, right? So I started thinking, so naturally, what did I do? I wanted to look and see abortion. If you can't force people to have children, then you make it illegal to murder them. So I'll do a quick screen share for a couple of things here. So one of the things I thought about immediately was percentage of the population. And when you look at the white and the black communities in the U.S., um, neither black or white are replacing people. More people are dying. They're not replacing the amount of people that are dying, right? So if 10 people die a day, there are only 5 births. What I'm making that number up. And so there's the problem. So the population is not being replaced. So what I looked at is 60% of the population is white, non-Hispanic. 18% is Hispanic. Uh, 20 years ago, that Hispanic number was about 14%. It was 13. It was about the same as the black population. As you see here, black population is 12%, Asian is 5.6%. So I think that's where this is, I think this is motivated more by that. So then I said, well, let's look at specifically the ratio, the population ratio in Texas. And there you see why Texas is one of the first states. So when I looked at Texas, and you look at the population of Texas, white alone, only white, non-Hispanic, not Latino. The population of white only in Texas is 41.2%. The population for the Hispanic or Latino is 39.7%. I mean, drop 1 in the white, you get at 40, go up 1 in Hispanic, and you've got 40. It's going to be equal. And since the white population is not replacing the amount of deaths, I'm asserting that this is a huge motivating force. I mean, and this is why Trump was pushing for his wall, right? So not only is the Hispanic population continuing to have multiple children, So if 10 people die in the Hispanic community today, 12 people will be born, or 15, whatever the number is. Plus, you have people entering illegally. So in a very, very short time, hell, and this was for, I think this is for 2020. I mean, as we speak, those numbers could have already flipped. So that's what a problem is. And and like I said, I don't really get into politics, but that will affect politics. Even if you rezone, and imagine that Hispanic population becomes 50%, it's not going to take very long for that to happen. Soon you will have a Hispanic governor, and that not just for 1 year, it will be consistent perpetually. Um, it's setting up also a Hispanic president of the United States. I didn't look at California, but I'm sure the numbers are pushing that way also. But this is a huge motivating factor, is what I'm asserting, is that the Hispanic population is on par. It's about equal. I mean, 39 and 41, I mean, that means you drive into Texas, you will, just from the eye, you're going to see about the same amount of Hispanics as you see whites. And you have to remember, Texas was part of the purchase. Texas was part of Mexico already, so there were already, I don't know, millions or hundreds of thousands of Mexicans that already lived there, and more Latinos will move to Texas because there's such a large Spanish-speaking population. Like right here in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, we have a section they call Down the Neck, the Ironbound section, Ferry Street, and there is for decades before I was born, there was always a Portuguese, people from Portugal live there. They have restaurants and shops. It's always been there. They've been there for generations. Well, Brazilians have come over, and now the Brazilians have heavily populated that area. So, that's what's will happen with Texas and New York. Hell, New Jersey. I left here, New Jersey, back in the '80s, and what we had here was Puerto Rican, Dominican, and Cuban, and that was pretty much it. Now you have Mexican, Guatemalan, Colombian, all these others, Ecuadorian, El Salvador. So I think that's a huge threat to Texas, and this abortion law for the white women who think they're just going to kill off the population. They're legislating that. There's no way. It's 12%, country boy. 12% in Texas. It's about 12% nationwide also. So that's one aspect from a social perspective, right? Hey, Tony G, absolutely. Lyft is definitely signaling they support feminism. Definitely. Yeah, we chaos for you. We deal with abortion like it's and it's mind-boggling because since so many women they know that they're risking their physical health and safety, and even risking the possibility of having children in the future, right? So which could make them an undesirable choice. Well, I guess if a woman like that Japanese woman who had 17 abortions, she could just never tell a man that she had abortions and say, I don't understand why I can't have a child. So a woman can lie about those things. But if a guy is looking to marry a woman, you don't want to marry a woman who's had 10 abortions. She may not be able to be impregnated. So women take a risk on this, and it is a discarding of life. We just make it much too easy to get an abortion. Like, we discard life. I mean, it's up to 24 weeks. That's they say 24 weeks the child could literally survive outside of the uterus. Well, chaos for you. I don't know if they want to have a country that's majority Latino, Hispanic. That will change everything. Interesting, Tony G. Right. We're all here because our parents didn't abort us, or they didn't take birth control. Yeah, Tony G. It's a matter of time before there's going to be a Hispanic president in the U.S. And once that, and I don't think it'll be like just a one-off. It'll be perpetual, because you'll eventually have a larger Hispanic population in the U.S. Eventually, United States is going to become part of Latin America. I think they're predicting like it may take about 30 years. So I'm this abortion law. I'm asserting that it's to buy time, so that this doesn't become, because this will become part of a Latin America, right? Spanish will become equal to English, right? Both languages taught in schools. Uh, if you don't speak Spanish, there will be certain jobs that will be very difficult for you to get because you will be expected to speak Spanish. And culturally, yeah, very different, much more for family oriented. Um, there will be people who will be alienated from language and culture. Yeah, I lived in several Latin American countries. I lived in Mexico the longest, and if you're from Argentina and you move to Mexico, you are just not Mexican. You will always be a foreigner. There are some people who have moved from the U.S. into Mexico. I think there are communities there, and it's probably easier. But some people who moved to Mexico left Mexico because they always felt like they didn't belong there. Mexico has very much a blood is thicker than water. Uh, I have the benefit, my last name is Santos, so that took me a long way. Hey, country boy, yeah, the Black American population is there are way too many abortions, and there aren't enough births, and that the Hispanic community is just going to grow. They were, if you just go back to the 1980s, they were already predicting this was going to that they were going to pass the Black American community, and they have. I mean, just look at that 14% and 18%. and that number just keeps growing. And chaos for you. You live in Texas, so when I lived in Acapulco, Mexico, and this woman was telling me that she moved to Texas. I don't know, for a year or two, and a guy told her, "Girl," she told me this story. She said the guy said, "Girl, you in America, you better learn English," and she said, "No, you're in Mexico, you better learn Spanish." So. And that was years ago when that mentality existed. So and 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 the thing that no one really talks about, there's El Chapo, the drug lord in Mexico, and then there's MS 13, the mostly Guatemalan, so El Salvadorian gang, and they have a different attitude towards feminism and some of the liberalism. The transgender in there's an article I read in El Salvador, and they told transgender that you should leave. We don't want you here, and if you stay, you will die. Those that stayed, they literally they kept their word. They murdered them. They disappeared. Mexico, feminists are disappearing. Any man that supports feminism, equal opportunity, they make the men disappear also. So the implications are rather strong as Latin America continues to grow here. They have a very different mindset when it comes to sexual harassment in the workplace. In Mexico, it's an honor for a woman to get kissed on the cheek by the boss. It is, that, and they make jokes about sex. This whole look, this is coming in the U.S. Yeah, exactly, Chris. I put up a stat, Chris, that in Texas it's 39% Hispanic and 41% white. I think that was 2020. That number may have already flipped. What's going on, Chris? Good to see you in the house. America belongs to Texas. Yeah, pretty soon, right? America is going to belong to Texas. Yeah, you probably said it right. America is going to belong to Texas pretty soon. Yeah, Chris, you know what's going on down there in Latin America with the whole trans culture. They are not going to accept that here. Yeah, and I said at the beginning of this, China is banning any any images on TV that's of men that are not masculine. It is banned. It is like they're shutting that down. They are bringing back manhood and masculinity in China. And think about that, right? Here we are promoting the soy boy culture, um, and Latin America is not pushing that. And if you in Latin America trying to be a soy boy, you're going to have problems. Mexico is a second world country, but I don't know if you know, about 2 years ago, El Chapo's uh, his operation defeated the Mexican army. And yes, you know what? Mexico is second world, but I lived there for about 2 years, and um, and maybe because I was in Acapulco, I yeah, that they had everything we have here. So I get it though. So there's something else I wanted to address here. So the dominant population, that's one of the concerns. The other thing that I touched on it a little bit. So women are now saying they have no choice over their own body. But think about it. To make a child, it takes a man and a woman. That's half his DNA and half her DNA. So should men have a right to say over an unborn child's life? Like, we discard men. I've even heard women say, "Oh, men have nothing to do with the birth, with creating new life on the planet." Women sit back and like as though they did this by themselves. It has the DNA of both the mother and the father, and men have absolutely no say in it. So in Texas, the women are now going to understand what it feels like to be a man. Because if a man wants to have the child, the woman can abort it. If the man says this is not a good time for the child, I don't want to marry you, I don't want to be with you, the woman has it. And as country boy, you were saying, well, if she wants to have it, then can you afford it? And should you take care of that child on your own? Because the man actually has no choice. And as you just said, Chris, the life starts with us, not with the woman. It starts with us. And they've learned that the placenta, like what happens in the womb is actually the result, is the intelligence of the sperm. And Chris, I've showed this video that talks about how there are three types of sperm. One is a sperm, only one type of sperm is going to fertilize the egg. One makes sure, like any kind of crevices where the sperm could get stuck, those sperm make a smooth runway and block those crevices so the sperm can keep going through to the egg. And the other kind of sperm, they are strictly soldiers. They are warriors. They do not go in to fertilize the egg. They go in seeking sperm from another man, and they go in to kill it. So, I mean, that sounds like a whole society going into a woman, sperm that makes sure it's a safe travel, right? So that the sperm doesn't get stuck in some dead end or traffic jam, and then sperm to make sure that the egg fertilizing sperm is safe. So that's intelligence. That's life already going into a woman. And men have no choice as to whether their sperm has a right to live, to carry on their legacy. Well, that's a Tony G. That's what the law is. It's a heartbeat law. That's so they're saying as soon as the heartbeat. But some medical professions are going to try and refute that and say it's technically not a heartbeat. It's an electrical impulse. Someone sent me this Instagram. Some guy was on the stage talking, and a woman was asking about, when should you be able to abort? And the guy on the stage, he got the woman to say that the woman is just a host. You're a host. You're a 9-month host for life that a man plants in you. So as men, we carry life 24/7, 365 days a year. We could be 100 years old and still impregnate a woman because we carry life. And if we shoot our whole wad, right? So a man could get technically several women pregnant in one day. Now, I've seen women get pregnant by two different men in the same day. I've seen it. One was a white guy, one was a black guy. But nevertheless, a woman can be impregnated by two men in the same day. A man could impregnate several women today, tomorrow. If you exhaust your sperm, your body replenishes it in a very relatively short time period. I forget the time period, but it's relatively short, and you go right back to work and can impregnate. So life really starts with us, and the way our society has the conversations have structured as though we have no part in it. So Texas women are now going to have the same kind of feeling sensation that men have, that you have no choice in the matter. And it seems they don't like it. Yeah, yeah, the egg is alive, but there's a level of intelligence that a sperm has that's very distinct from an egg. Yeah, that's what some people say. Life starts from contraception, Tony G. Well, the doctors can be fined if they provide an abortion, if they um, perform one. If the woman is beyond 6 weeks, so they can only do abortions up to 6 weeks. And the feminists are saying, well, a lot of women won't know they're pregnant in less than 6 weeks. A 100 women in a day. I actually don't know what the numbers are, but so I had another thought about this. And this is a since Texas is passing a law and saying no, you can't abort the child. I think there's a law that can go along with this, and there are quite a few women, and this is clearly it's an insane thing that a woman could actually, if you throw your condom in the trash, she can actually take the sperm, insert it in her, and still collect child support. I would say that's theft. That's stealing. So if we now can restrict whether or not a woman can abort the life that we insert in her, can we have laws that say she can't steal life from us? She can't force a pregnancy. She can't force an insertion of our sperm. I think it could be seen as theft. And some people say, well, possession is 9/10 of the law. And technically, that's actually not true. I wanted to. Uh, so women can argue and say, well, I have possession of your sperm, so that's 9/10 of the law. So I looked at a law firm that says possession is 9/10 of the law. What does it mean? And essentially, it's saying just because a person possesses something, that doesn't mean they own it. However, it is often assumed that a person in possession of something is the likely owner, but that isn't always the case. For example, if you own a car and lend it to a friend, your friend is in possession of the car, but lending the car to them does not transfer ownership to the vehicle. For this reason and many others, possession laws are complicated, even for attorneys and judges. If you find yourself facing drug possession, it's going into different types of possessions now. So, constructive possession. Constructive possession is often involved, and this is coming from Wolf Law. This is a law firm, so this isn't, once again, not my opinion. Constructive possession is often involved in criminal cases. The legal theory expands the meaning of possession so that it may include items not in physical contact with the possessor. Constructive possession involves knowledge of an object plus the ability to control the object, even if the possessor is not physically in contact with the object. Um, so what I'm asserting that I think this is an opportunity for laws to be viewed differently, because there are women who literally steal sperm, and the laws protect them, and the man has to pay child support for that. So the man has no right to say abort. So if a woman wants to abort because of rape or incest or for health reasons, what are the conditions that a man can say abort, right? You stole my sperm and you have no right to it. It's like if you steal my car, even if I leave my car running outside with the keys in it and the windows down and you get in it and drive off up with it, that is stealing. I'm still the owner, and sperm is the ownership of men. So I'm putting this out there as something for men to really think about, because as men, so look, we may think, I don't, if we follow the money, whoever mandated that Texas have this new abortion law, I bet you if you follow the money, someone hired lobbyists and passed that law. The question is who? Who benefits by more births, right? So is this about having the white population not become the minority? How does that affect districts and voting? I mean, so what are all who really benefits from that? So if you follow the money, there's a money trail for that. So if we look at the money that could be put behind this whole belief that possession is 9/10, and just have it really that, look, a man's sperm is his legal personal property and no one has the right to it. And if you do take it, it's a crime, punishable under the law. So I had one more thought. So if we look at Australia, Australia is being, they're about to be told they all have to have this vaccination. I mean, on some levels, that's draconian law, right? So is Texas abortion laws a step on the path of the same thing that's happening in Australia? Does it open the door? Does it open the door? So if Tuesday, women could get abortions in Texas, and then Wednesday they pass a law, and Thursday, boom, like those clinics, I showed you those clinics, they're saying how many people, the traffic has dropped significantly. He's turning people away in huge numbers. Is this opening the door for some kind of draconian law? Yeah, no question, Chris. No question. Very feminist, right? But there's the question, Chris. Are we opening the door to that? See, if they say you cannot have an abortion legally, and they enforce it by law, can they say you have to take the vaccination? I mean, is it like a stepping stone? Are we opening the door? Are we opening Pandora's box? So in Australia, if they're going to say you can't go to work, you can't buy food, you can't even drive your car, you can't circulate in the public, are we going to have one of these, like you see in Terminator, the resistance, the underground movement of people who don't get a vaccination, underground abortions? I mean, hell, before Roe versus Wade, women did. They either tried to abort themselves, they used clothes hangers to try and scrape the wall of their uterus. A lot of women punctured their uterus and they hemorrhaged to death, or they went to some illegal place to get it. And some died there, and some places were better than others. So are we opening the doors to draconian laws? Now, maybe we need some draconian laws. Like we saw the interview of the governor of Texas. This guy is taking a stand and he's not backing down. And other states are going to follow. Where does it stop? Is the question. Hey, Tony G, I think you're responding to women stealing your sperm. Yeah, that is predatory. That includes women who rape minors, right? So these school teachers having sex with 13-year-old boys, and then when they turn 18, they charge them for child support. She should be charged with stealing his personal property. So are we opening the door for draconian laws? So yeah, what was that guy PJ and that the basketball player Tony G, and he impregnates a woman who says get pregnant by an athlete because they're stupid. I mean, she put that on social media and the guy still gets her pregnant. I mean, in some ways you can't feel sorry for that guy. And chaos view, right? So that's what, yeah, I'm getting at, right? So what are laws that we can look at that it is trapping a man, stealing his sperm? What are all the ways that a woman can steal sperm from a man and then demand to be not demand child support, or she just collects a check from the government? My brother told me a couple of years ago, a woman he went. My brother went to visit a friend, and the friend liked having for some reason, this guy lived in a huge house. He was a trust fund baby. He liked having some hood people around him sometimes. So my brother goes to visit. My brother's definitely not hood, but my brother goes to visit, and there's this hood rat there, and he meets her for the first time. She's 19 years old, and she is engaging my brother for I don't know how long he's there, half an hour, an hour. After only being in my brother's presence for 1 hour of meeting him, she asked my brother, will you get me pregnant? I want to have sex with you. I want to get pregnant. Don't worry, you'll never have to pay child support. I'm going to fill out. He said she knew all the forms to fill out and she would connect. She was 19, no children, and wanted a child from my brother. I mean, he declined. He was like, no, but I mean, is that entrapment? Because he would have probably been on the hook for child support. So is that, also included in entrapment, trapping a man? Well, hey, Tony G, yeah, I guess women could deny it, but Jesse Jackson had a love child and he was paying the woman $10,000 a month, to be quiet. And somehow she revealed it to a media source. And she said that's what she did. She took the condom and stuck it up in her. So there are women who do that. Yeah, sperm jacking. It should be a crime. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a problem. But so there's a problem, right? So the courts would believe a woman, right? But if a guy says, when she told me she was pregnant, I told her I was against this. Now, and I understand birth control is not 100%, not even a condom. And yeah, Tony G, I'm reading the rest of your comment, right? Then the woman can just flip it and say, well, he raped me. Right. So that's a problem. Hey, I didn't know that, Chris. They told women don't have sex with men who don't get vaccinated. Really? Great chaos for you. You think Pandora's box was already opened, huh? Hey, Tony G. It's not that companies are involving themselves more and more. This is the thing that people don't understand. In 1776, the government was only set up to serve companies. They were set up to serve three constituencies: wealthy families, large landowners, and at that time they were merchants, which are now large corporations. The government has no political power. It's the wealthy families, large landowners, and the corporations that write the policies. What the government does is serve as a mediator. So imagine if a wealthy family and a large corporation are at odds and they want a policy that conflict. Well, the government was set up in 1776 to be a mediator, and they collect, and they are supposed to set up infrastructure, right? Roads, education. So they set up all kind, whatever infrastructure is needed, right? Um, but they also are to protect the interest. And if you look around the world, wars, they are protecting the interest of wealthy families, large landowners, and corporations. It's not that business is getting involved. Every president of the United States has answered to wealthy families, large landowners, and corporations. That is how it's been set up. I lived in DC, my clients were lobbyists, and I thought politicians were passing these laws until I saw stacks of bills, that these policies that they wanted passed for telecommunications and healthcare. They were the one writing the policies. And very interesting, whenever a policy that probably would be completely against the best interest of the population, that's when O.J. Simpson would fill the TV, the Gulf War, Clarence Thomas. Now we've got this Afghanistan thing. Whenever something blows up and everyone's eye is on it, watch Capitol Hill. Something is happening. And it's not the politicians that are doing it. They are doing their jobs. They are just public servants. And who they serve? Large landowners, wealthy families, and large corporations. It's always been that way since 1776. This is not a democracy, it's a republic. And who runs a republic? Large landowners, wealthy families, and large corporations. I hate to keep repeating that, but the other thing also is you have these PACs, these super PACs, and men would have to put money behind this. This is what the whole alphabet community does, right? They create PACs, or they have significant positions in corporations, or they can create PACs that they put money into it, and they hire lobbyists and they write policies for same-sex marriage or whatever else you have. I mean, some things that I may say may sound like fantasy and they could never happen, but they only happened because women put money behind things. This whole same-sex marriage has been going on since at least the 1960s. They just didn't have enough numbers, so they ran propaganda and got enough women to jump in and contribute money and write letters or call congressmen, and they were able to get it done. Men have the same power. We just do. And we still out earn women. It's 1% who are making the policies. What men in general, the other 99, let's say 90% of men really could have an impact. But the question is, this Texas bill, I didn't look for who's making money off of this. Like, who's being impacted? Like, who cares that much? Like, clearly the Hispanic population is going, there's a tipping point. and it's going to happen. So not allowing abortion will delay the inevitable. It's still going to happen. But who doesn't want it to happen is the question. Well, there's a guy, Charles Fourier, in 1837. He's the one who coined the term feminism. He's a French sociologist. Feminism was always about taking a man out the house. The black community was just a test market to see if it actually works, and it does. See, this is all I'm including even that in draconian laws. Trust me, good to see you in the house. Fiera, the nomad. Glad you wandered off in here. We're talking about will the new Texas laws change the USA? We're looking at some of the other impacts, social impacts. Yeah, Chris, like he that was just a stupid move to get that woman pregnant. Yep, told the whole world she wanted to get pregnant by a dumb athlete. Yeah, you- so it seems like this is a place where guys were smart enough. Hey, Chris, what did you mean? Yes, they did that months ago. I know I spoke about a few things. Hey, Tony G, the president of the United States is not running things. He's answering. He's answering to corporations, wealthy families. I mean, there are wealthy families you don't even know about, like the Astors. They owned a huge portion of Manhattan at one point. My brother was telling me about a family that owned all of Los Angeles, and they just over time sold off properties. I forget the name of that family. Uh, Vanderbilt still have money. Rockefellers, the Carnegies, J.P. Morgan. There are lots of wealthy families out there. Some you never heard of. They own businesses, foundations. The Ford family. Still, that's a big name. Hey, Jay Wall Street, that's a big problem. Women just jump behind things. So if you do propaganda and make them feel good and like the grass is greener, they jump blindly, exactly the way you said. Oh, okay, okay, I got you, Chris. Months ago they did that. Interesting. Interesting. So the married dudes are getting it. Yeah, that's chaos for you. That's shaming men to go to war. That's yeah. Well, it's interesting. Mothers don't have a problem sending their sons off to the front line of the battlefield. Will they send their daughters off? And didn't they? Don't women now have to register for the selective service? That I think that was just passed like last month or the month before. Which I think if that means if a draft is done, women can be drafted also now. Which they didn't. They wanted to be exempt from that. They wanted equal, but not that equal. So I'm so my main thoughts around this Texas making abortion illegal is the Hispanic culture is about to surpass. Uh, I'm sorry, Hispanic population will pass the white population in Texas, and it will eventually do so throughout the United States. Women, men have had no rights around abortion, and we get treated as though we had nothing to do with it. So women can abort a child when we want it and keep a child when we don't want it. So now women are getting a taste of that, and they'll scream victim, but men, we're supposed to just take that. My thought is, can this law serve as a springboard? And I do hear all, women can scream rape. Um, if women know that they can't get an abortion now, like Chris, they're going to Oklahoma, they're going to neighboring states, but some of those neighboring states are going to implement the same laws. Will women now all of a sudden start to be intelligent about one, their choices, and two, birth control? Do they want to get pregnant or not? And Country Boy made a good suggestion. If you want to keep the baby and the father doesn't, then you're on your own. No health, no welfare, nothing. But my other thought is could this lead to draconian laws? And like you guys were saying, that they try to use women to shame men into doing things. But does this open up a door for them to impose other laws and not turn back on it? Like this is we just put one foot on the pathway. And it may not look that way. But if you can successfully implement this and overturn a Roe versus Wade, what other laws can be overturned? And understanding that there's going to be a money trail somewhere. There really will be. Who benefits pissing the women off? Technically, men do. Yeah, chaos for you. I heard about that. Women getting pregnant to avoid going out to deployment. Right. Yeah, Tony G. That's my big question is who benefits? Like someone benefits from this. Is it because of population, like whites becoming the minority? Is that the benefit uh, to mitigate that from happening, or is there something else? Everyone talks about the population control, decreasing population. Well, this Texas bill is completely opposite of population control. Hey, chaos for you, right? So how many Einsteins have been aborted? How many Nikola Teslas, right? Have we already gotten rid of? So yes, we all benefit. Hey, Chris, I didn't see that. They can be criminally charged for going to another state. I didn't really. No one. Wow, that's interesting. Because I showed some news clips and they said that women were going to other states, and that that in one particular abortion clinic, they would only have about 15 women a day. Now, like immediately after, they have twice that. They have 30 women a day now. Yeah, yeah, this is, I mean, I guess I don't normally talk about politics and religion and whether it's morally right. I mean, there are plants here in the United States that if you boil and make a tea, it aborts the child. So nature has allowed for, I hate to say it that way, but nature has allowed for abortions. So I've, whether living in with Mayan Indians, I've learned a lot of things about plants. And there are certain plants that a woman can boil, drink it as a tea, and it aborts the child. So I don't morally, I understand, it's murder, I understand all that, but somehow nature has created an outlet for that, for abortion to happen by creating plants. So here's the other thing. If women get pissed off, this is the example I wanted to say. So Japan had the perfect example of women getting pissed off. There was a there was a governor running in a certain province or state in Japan, and the women said, they told all the men, if you vote for this guy, we will stop having sex. That's what the women said. We will be so angry because this guy is anti-feminist, and if you vote for him, all the women are going to protest and no sex. And what did the men in Japan do? They overwhelmingly voted for that guy. And the women were pissed off. And the men didn't care. I'm not going to go on my other soapbox when I start talking about men built every civilization, which you get the point. Hey, Tony G, right. Black women are getting the most abortions. They are. It would mean more black babies would live. It would mean that. Yes. But I'm looking at statistics. 30 in just Texas, just looking at only Texas, 39% Hispanic, 41% white. I mean, what happens if it goes to 50% Hispanic and 30% white? How does that affect business? How does that affect who gets voted into office? And so that means if you get, let's just stay with that number, 50% Hispanic, 40% white, and Hispanics start putting in their own senators and congressmen and their own governor, and they have their own agenda and they have their lobbyists, that could be a lot of power. I mean, just look at the move China made recently, just this year. China didn't go out and protest and say no hate. I shouldn't say China, Asians. Asians didn't say no hate crimes against Asia and we were picketing. No, they put money together. They've hired lobbyists. The lobbyists wrote the policies, took it up to Capitol Hill. There's a check for a campaign contribution. Make sure our bill is passed, and that's how it went down. So Asians understand how to play that. Imagine if Asians, especially Chinese, were the majority population in this country. That would have a huge impact on culture, on many things. So what would be the impact of Hispanics becoming a majority population? culturally, lots of things will change here. And Tony G, the black population in the US is what, 13%? It's very small. It's yes, it's the most abortions. So, I don't think it's going to double just like that. But Chris, look at how many look at the amount of women who voted for Trump though. So there was a fairly sizable amount of women who voted for Trump. So in Japan, those women were very much against that guy. I forget. I read the article. I posted it in Straight Talk when it came out. Yeah, but what's the benefit of funding the feminazis, right? I mean, if the big picture is creating a new social construct where children are raised in single parent households, and it's much easier to control those children born in a single parent household. They have less discipline. Um, Frustrated mothers can be more abusive. Um, there's more likely poverty depending on the state, getting a welfare. I mean, uh, children raised in a home with a father or have higher IQs. Like there are all kinds of benefits of having a father in the home, better problem solver. There are tons of benefits, right? I mean, if this is what was in place, I mean, if you can then just tell people like a herd of sheep, go this way, go that way, stop, go backwards. I buy this, don't buy. I mean, look at a consumer culture. I mean, look at what women do. 77% of consumer purchases are made by women. That's what getting jobs have done for them. They haven't committed to building companies that employ people. They create these solopreneurs. Just they create a profession, a job for themselves. Yeah, yeah. And I just, I don't want to ever sound like a conspiracy theorist in saying that, getting to vote, that was part of a bigger propaganda, right? Yeah. Hey, Tony G, I don't, in the US, when it comes down to it, Republicans and Democrats really do work together. I mean, they still answer to wealthy families, large landowners, and large corporations. They answer to them. So the most feminist woman still wanted Trump. Right. So more power control. I mean, then people spend money mindlessly. Hey, see, that's Tony G. I would see that's what I would wonder, right? A slave culture, regardless of your race, and the black community, not slavery, but the black community in terms of the single parent household and watching how the community, the environment, the family crumbles, and you watch the degeneration of many other things just by changing one thing, like pulling one lever. What happens when you take the father out the home? And you see it. So if you can roll that out across the board, you can have a slave culture. I mean, just and this COVID thing. it actually creates a test market for that, right? So everyone gets a check. Most people get a check. Don't worry, you won't have to work, right? They already have people who don't want to go back to work because they're making almost as much money staying home as it is to go to work. So imagine you stay home, you watch television, you get your monthly check, they pay your rent, right? So the landlords get their checks paid. The military continues. And then one day they say, hey, look, the government is running out of money. This is my prediction, the way a slave culture would be created. People get comfortable, fat, and happy, and they get their paycheck every month. Their rent is paid. They get certain credits. You go to the doctor. And then one day the government says, hey, we're running out of money. So people are actually going to have to do some volunteer work. And so you'll continue to get your X amount, $1,000 a month check. You get that every month. But now you're going to be going to work and you're going to be putting in outrageously long hours and you're just getting 1,000. That's going to be less than minimum wage. And the corporation wins because the minimal amount they pay in taxes will go towards you getting your $1,000 a month, and they can pump out 12 hours a day for you if you want to keep getting your $1,000 a month. And that's across races, everyone who takes the bait. That is a society that you could set up. Yeah, hey Chris, but even for the women, it's a Venetian flytrap because it's even you just string them along and have the women set up the trap. They set up the trap for everyone, including themselves. Yeah, that's a good quote from Lennon. Chaos for you. Right. But this universe, they keep talking about this universal payment, right? If you enact that and you put a percentage of the population, eventually you can get those people to go to work for that minuscule amount of money, and you can work the hell out of them if they want to keep getting their check. Yeah, I can do that, Chris. Drop the link, Chris. Right, exactly, chaos view, that universal income, right, exactly. That's what I'm getting at, right? So it's like, you know, almost like we're in this huge social experiment where COVID has got the whole world, the whole planet on this. So you can do this throughout the world. So initially, people get to sit home and go shopping. There's a great Twilight Zone episode. It's called I think it's called How to Serve Man. It's one of the early, probably 1960s or 70s Twilight Zone. If you haven't seen it, it's probably on YouTube. I think it's called How to Serve Man, and it is an excellent episode on how you set people up, you fatten them up for the kill. It is, if you haven't seen it, it's a great one to watch. I would love to show it here, but they'll probably shut me down. So, but it's How to Serve Man, and it is what we are speculating, theorizing here. But it's what the whole thing is about. How you set up a trap for society, and it was for global. Yeah. What's going
It's
on?
simple. It's simple. You use pussy as bait.
Right, exactly.
That's all they've been doing. Look, with this whole COVID-19, I died laughing when I saw them come out on the news and tell women to stop having sex with men if they didn't get the shot. And it's like, wait a minute, most men are going MGTOW anyway, so you really don't have any fucking leverage. But I mean, yeah, women are stupid. I mean, I can't believe, first of all, it pisses me off nowadays that we still have men, and it's usually, I hate to say it, it's usually white men telling women that they're strong and, oh, she's so strong, she's a fighter, and just putting them on these giving them these accolades that they don't deserve. Women are just stupid. If you look at the biology doesn't support it. If they're so smart, how is it that they can get pregnant by the same broke, dumb men and end up in financial ruin when they saw a woman before her, get put down that path? For 50 years they've been telling them to, forego getting married, right? Get out of high school, go to college, start your career, and blah, 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 right? So for 50 years, they've been doing this and miserably failing. I mean, what did Einstein say about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. But for 50 years, they've been doing this, and they're the most miserable they've ever been. They're on drugs the most they've ever been. They're homeless the most they've ever been. There's only one way for them to succeed in life, and that's under the guidance of a man.
It's still the number one way for women to acquire wealth is through marriage.
It's to marry the number one. Think about it. With all the freedoms that they have now, because they claim that that's the problem before, that they weren't liberated, they didn't have any freedoms, they couldn't do this, they couldn't do that. Well, they are the most liberated they've ever been. Yet, the number one way to still get rich is to marry a rich man and divorce him and take his shit. They're too smart. They're too stupid to build their own wealth. But we have to pretend that they're smart so we don't hurt their fucking feelings. Bullshit. You're an idiot. And I have no problem fucking telling you that. And if you get pissed off about it, and you piss me off about it, I might just beat your ass.
So
that's another thing. Hollywood has sold them so many fantasies, and their dumbasses have bought into them. Hollywood has told them that they're intelligent. Look at all these movies now where they have these women, that are the brains behind all these missions to space. We know damn well it didn't happen, right? Look at all these movies where they have women, this 5'2", 110-pound woman beating up a 6'5", 300-pound man. Yeah, I'm sorry, all the physics don't support that.
Well, hey, Chris, they even had him in the last Terminator. They had him beating up the Terminator, taking a punch from a machine and getting up and slugging it out, right?
Right. And it's gotten to the point that they actually believe this shit. We see a movie, right? We saw the original Terminator, right? With John Connor fighting the Terminator. Now, we know damn well if you punch a robot, you're probably going to break your fucking hand, right? So we knew it was just fiction. We left it right there in the movie theater. But then they make a female Terminator movie, and these bitches actually think they can beat up robots now. They're just fucking children. They should never have been given voting rights. They should have never been put in charge of anything. But you have too many men who just want to get their dicks wet, and they're scared to stand up to them, so they make the rest of us suffer because they give them power. And now we can't do anything. We have to wait for society to fall.
So, Chris, now take what you just said. So this is where, and I played a clip of the governor of Texas, and he's not backing down from this bill. I'm
so glad that they adopted that bill.
They said that oh, well, young college educated women are not going to move to the state. He said Texas is the #1 state people are moving to. In fact, they're leaving the most liberal state, California, in huge numbers, and they're coming here. This is the #1 state for people to come to. So this bill is standing. So to what you wrote in the chat, right? So this is a guy having balls and not backing down. And the person interviewing him was a woman saying, well, what about this? What he was like, relentless, not backing down. You know, he said, I've got businesses coming. So that's the other side of this, is saying, hey, men are taking a stand, and that's it. And if you don't like it, the rest of the nation will do it. So go down to Mexico or DR to get your abortion, and maybe you'll come back.
But to his, I will say this, but to his detriment, that bill had already gained so much momentum that by the time all the commies left California and moved to Texas, because they did it just to sway the well, they did it for two reasons, because they fucked California up so bad that, you know, that they can't afford anything in California, and it's basically, you know, it's going to shit. You know, it's I don't know what they're going to do to save California, but that they wanted to try to sway the election. They wanted, you know, because they knew Texas is a red state, and they wanted to turn Texas blue. So a lot of them, and they only moved to state cities like Austin, which was already a liberal city. But yeah, that bill gained so much momentum to that even them moving there, there's nothing they could do. But yeah, the good thing about that bill is, if you know someone who you know, goes out of state and gets an abortion, you can sue them. And also that woman can also be criminally charged under that bill. She'd be criminally charged for murder. Well, because she knowingly went to another state to take another life under that bill.
I didn't know that. So I didn't find that. But what I did find, if the Lyft driver takes her to the clinic, he's getting sued. He can be sued.
Right.
What Lyft did, Lyft said, well, we'll pay the fine for you. Not only will we pay the fine, we're going to donate $1 million to Planned Parenthood. So Lyft is showing.
Good. Here's the thing. You know, once those abortions start happening, so Lyft only has so much money, right? Lyft only has so much money. They don't have enough to fund. They basically let their mouth write checks that their ass won't be able to cash. Literally. So they can say that right now, and it's all fun and games until 200,000 abortions pop up, and you start doing the math on all that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, they can say that now. It's easy to say that when you haven't paid a dime.
So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, it is, and I think yeah, we need more draconian laws. But I say, like I said before, draconian laws they're gonna receive pushback, right? I say, you know, hey, well, even with the pushback, you know, they'll eventually be taken off the table, or they'll find some way to go around, right? So I say, instead of trying to come up with draconian laws or trying to figure out, you know, how to corral them, look at full speed ahead on the crazy train. We're going to crash, right? We're on the crazy train. We are going to crash. Let's just get it over with. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and get this shit over with. So, and once it's over with, women will see true equality. So once we're rebuilding, they'll see it. You know, a lot of them are going to die. They're going to starve. They're going to die. It's going to be bad for them.
Here's the flip side to that. Women are going to stand on the sideline and let men rebuild it. And when it's rebuilt, they're going to say, you guys screwed up. You let us crash. So women should run things. See, we're going to still be in the same position because we didn't do anything about the women. The women will take the crash and then say this was men's fault and be upset with men. So
yeah. And by then, but guess what? By then, men will be in control of everything. So we can just simply tell them, you know what? If you want to eat tonight, if you want a place to sleep tonight, if I were you, I would shut the fuck up.
Yeah, well, that men would have to grow balls. So
That's the problem. That's going to be one of the problems right there. And
that's what I'm saying. So it's like you'll end up in the same exact situation, because if the men still don't have balls, the women will still, they'll say, well, this is your fault. They'll nag them to death. This is all your fault. And if you want to have sex.
But they're doing it now. You know, even like no matter how much we tell them that, you know, there's no pay gap, they still say, you know, that no matter how much you debunk it, you know, everything's still a man's fault. But, you know, at some point in time, men are going to have to stand up to women, and they're going to have to stand up to other men who just have to stand up to simps, you know? It's going to have to come to a point where we're going to have to, I mean, other than the Civil War, we're going to have to find some way to start, you know, putting these simps, checking these simps. But as you can see, the simps are the ones they reward the most right now in the current system. Well, and they only reward the simps because they know the simps are like women. The simps just give their money right back.
At least they believe they're being rewarded.
Yeah. But it's. I mean, you have to take, like, all these men protesting trans in sports. I say no, no. Let's get more trans in sports. I want to see more women. I want to see more women get their skulls cracked in MMA. But you know that happened, right?
If you said more women get their skulls cracked?
Yes. A woman literally got her skull cracked in an MMA fight with a transgender.
Yeah. I know about that. Yeah. That's and they'll be losing their college scholarships to boys who want to be girls.
Yeah, that's happening already too. Yeah, so I want to see more of that. You know,
there was
I mean, they lost the Miss America pageant to a fucking trans.
Someone said, "Simps find out the truth and kill themselves."
Yeah, some of them do. Well, not only did they kill themselves, they also killed the women that tricked them. There was one guy in Florida, some IG model had tricked him out of a whole bunch of money, and he went down there, strangled her to death, and then stabbed himself to death. And then another one in Texas, she tricked him out of a whole bunch of money. He shot her 50. Think how angry you have to be to shoot somebody 50 times. Your average magazine for a handgun only holds 15 rounds. So this dude reloaded 3 times. But you know, it's going to take more of that for women to learn. Here's the thing: women don't understand. We are the #1 apex predator on the planet. Lions, tigers, and bears can see a man in the wild and not fuck with that man because they know they might end up on that man's dinner plate. Or at the very least, if they kill him, they'll be too injured after they kill them to feed themselves. They won't be able to hunt. They won't be able to do anything. So they just won't go down that road. You know what I mean? You can find all kinds of videos on YouTube of mountain lions just seeing men, you know, walking and just leaving men the fuck alone. Bears seeing men walking and just leaving men the fuck alone. But for some odd reason, women forget that. They forget that at any minute we could kill them, and we could do it just for sport. We kill things sometimes just to do it, just to see how long it would take, or what it would take to kill it. You know what I mean? Or how it would taste.
Yep. So did you ever see that video? It was in Africa. 3 men from the Maasai tribe. I think 2 had a bow and arrow and 1 had a spear. And they walked up to 16 lions. At least,
yeah, they just took that antelope away from it like it was nothing.
At least 3 were full-grown males, and all 16 lions ran. And they took the part of the animal they walked away.
Yeah, and those dudes were like, I mean, if you saw those dudes on TV, you would think Sally Struthers would put them up there so you could send them quarters. Like 3 anorexic dudes just walked into a pack of lions and took their food from them, and the lions just ran. But somehow, for some odd reason, women forget that men are that dangerous. Women forget that the only thing holding men back from killing them for fucking with us is the fact that we respect what another man might do when it comes to their defense. But that time is going to come. to an end. If they keep, you can only poke a bear so much before it, before it pokes back. You know what I mean? Before it decides to lash out.
Yeah, but see, the bigger problem is what you were saying, and people have said here. Someone said like 10 simps will fill the void, right? So she'll just go run off and cry to some other guy. Like I've had women say things like, well, you're saying things to me that no man has ever said. I was like, that's because they didn't have balls. They probably thought it. They just didn't have the guts to say it. They wanted to have sex. I'm the only person who's helping you.
Right.
You're on a dead end. I'm telling you, you can't.
Right.
So
they've been told a lie. As far as sexual liberation goes, they think that being sexually liberated because they see men having a lot of sex with having sex with a lot of women, and even though it's only a small population of men that are able to do that, they think that's being sexually liberated. That's not the case.
I understand.
Being sexually liberated means you're open. You're able to be open and honest with someone without the expectation of sex afterwards. Because once you're open and honest with them, you're probably not going to get sex from them.
Well,
but you don't care.
The bigger problem is the men. So, like when a woman says to me, "You're the only guy who said this to me," that's a problem. That no man said anything.
Right.
There's the real problem is that men won't have balls. Like a couple of weeks ago, I did a show about Afghanistan and how they're going door to door and telling women to go home. You don't work here anymore. Send your brother. What could men learn from Afghanistan is what the show is about, and how men in Afghanistan have balls. And they sent Russia home, and the United States exited quickly from there. So I gave all kind of theories for that show. But the point is, those are men who have balls, and the men who would be Afghan simps, they ran. They're running to the U.S. or whatever country, Canada, wherever they're going.
They were climbing on planes as they were taking off, climbing on the wing of airplanes as they were taking off and falling off to their death.
Right. So what? Here's the other thing they did is because over the 20 years the U.S. was there, U.S. was pushing feminism.
Yes.
And they are stomping. The Taliban is stomping that out. So anyone who was siding with the U.S. and against the Taliban, they're also going door to door looking for you. And if you're not there, they will penalize your family till you come out, and so they can deal with you. So there's a different way of men dealing with men, and here we've allowed women to tell men how to live and how to deal with men. That's where the problem is. Women have made the rules for manhood, and men have sworn an allegiance to that. Too many men, and even men who claim they're not, have sworn an allegiance to it. There's your problem.
Well, it's been by design. Well, if you notice, they've kicked all the men out of school, so now it's rare that you will find a male teacher in any school from kindergarten to high school. Right? It's just so few men. When if you think about it, historically speaking, the male teachers have always been the best teachers. And then on top of that, you cater the educational system to the way women learn. You specifically gear it towards the way they learn, to where they just are able to retain bits of knowledge rather than apply them. You know what I mean? So they can digest all this information, but they don't know how to apply it in real life. That's why when they get to college, they avoid STEM. Because once you learn STEM and you graduate, you have to apply it now. They can't do that.
But technically, our schools people are not learning. They're just memorizing.
Right, exactly. That's what I said. They cater to women. That's what women do. They memorize. They're parents. They're parents. They're like parents, probably want a cracker. You can teach a parent to say probably want a cracker all day long, but that parent doesn't know what the fuck a cracker really means. They just know that you told it to say probably wants a cracker.
Right.
And then on top of that, you make it easier for them to get into financial institutions beyond college. So now they make it, because they've gone to college, they got this piece of paper, even though you made it, easy for them. You basically give it to them just so they can put themselves in debt. They think that they've accomplished something, but they haven't. The whole thing has been a sham. But because they've done this, they've effectively dumbed down society so much that the average man and the average woman, as it has an 8th grade educational level, like mentally, they're still stuck at the 8th grade. And until you start allowing men back in the education, back in schools, you can't change that. Because they've actually done studies too where they found out that even when you had smart boys in classrooms, the female teachers would grade their papers more harshly and give them failing grades.
Wait, what? You're not so clear. Say that again.
They've done studies to where they've shown that female teachers were actually grading boys' papers harsher than the girls' papers and giving them unfair grades, giving them failing grades.
They've done studies nationwide where the teacher couldn't see the name of the student and boys' grades went up 30%.
Yes. Yes. So we keep telling women that they're smarter men, but they're not. It's just that there's from the time you're a boy and you start going to school, they rig the game against you. There's only one time a girl is smarter than a boy, and that's when she hits puberty, because women hit puberty before men. So they reach their peak intelligence, but that's where the intelligence also stops, right there at puberty. That's why you see so many women who are in their 30s and they still act like children.
Right.
But once a boy hits puberty, his intelligence skyrockets past women. That's how come you see men inventing smartphones and women can't even invent a damn tampon. They had to wait for a man to do it.
Right. So here's,
and that's just a piece of cotton with a string on it.
Hold on. So if we get back to the topic, so this is so if I take everything you said and you look at what Texas is doing, Texas is actually implementing manhood and masculinity. So in the face of there, you can have women complaining and saying this is not good, and there are now other states that are looking to follow Texas's lead and implement the same kind of laws, because the Supreme Court doesn't have a problem with it. So Roe versus Wade gets ignored. So now they are going to make decisions for women that women claim their right to choose is being taken from them. But so it's a way of men in implementing masculinity and not backing down from it. And in addition to that, you think about it, right? Men have never had the right to choose over life. If I say I didn't want this child with you, I can't choose. If I say I do want it and you don't, you abort it. So, it's some, I don't want to say a level playing field, but it's incorporating masculinity, and there's nothing women can do about it. They can go to another state, or and if it's passed in the majority of states, they can go down to Mexico or Dominican Republic, wherever they get their implants and stuff. They can do their abortions there. But this is men taking a stand.
Yeah, I agree. And the problem's going to come with other states. Other states need to follow that, because he said it earlier. The government is just trying to create a new class of slaves, right? Slavery didn't go away; it just got redefined. So, right? I'm being honest. Slave masters figured out that that housing slaves, if you have a slave on your plantation, you have to house them, you have to feed them, you have to do all that, right? Provide them health care. Well, that costs you money. Why not give them the illusion of freedom, right? Give them a job where they can barely afford to feed themselves, barely afford to clothe themselves, and they depend on you. But at the end of the day, whatever money you pay them, they're bringing it right back to you. So not only are you getting work out of them, but you're damn near getting all your money that you pay them back. And if women are allowed to have these babies and put men on child support, or force society to pay for these abortions, then that's what they're doing. They're just going to get all this money from men. because men out earn women. No matter what you say, men out earn women. We do the most dangerous jobs that comes at the higher pay. So the government, when we out earn women, they want to try to get that money back. That's why single men pay higher taxes. Single men pay higher car insurance.
So, but here, so I'm under the assumption that, you know, if you get underneath this bill that's been passed in Texas, I'm under the assumption it's not women who are pushing it. I'm assuming that, right?
Right.
And so if it's men, this is so many times men say there's nothing we can do about it. But Texas is a perfect example of yes, you can. God,
yeah.
I sound like Obama now, right? Yes, we can, right?
Yeah, stay away from the bathhouses, though.
Not hanging out in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, but you get what I'm saying. So this is all part of. So when you look at this socially, right? So it's a move that wasn't necessarily anticipated, and now it's being enforced. So if you look at the chessboard, it's a move that no one saw coming, and it's sticking. It's a move that, how did you make that move? And it's going to work, and it's going to spread, because I shared screen, read an article. I showed that other states are already looking at this. The red states, they're looking to incorporate it exactly like it. There are already states that have, what did I look up here? That have similar laws. 2000. So here in 2013, North Dakota became the first state to pass a heartbeat law. In 2015, the law was ruled unconstitutional under the precedent set by the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision Roe versus Wade. So Texas found a way around that.
Mm-hmm.
And here are 8 states. Which states is abortion illegal in 2020? Here are the 8 states: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Michigan, Mississippi, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. So they will still, and those states still have unenforced pre-Roe abortion bans in their laws, which could be enforced if Roe were overturned. So there are 8 states that will probably immediately follow Texas and implement it the same way. So this is, I'm saying that to say men can actually put laws into place. Even in the face of all that women have done, men are not helpless. They are not victims. They actually can do something. And this is a perfect example. And I'm making the assumption that this Texas law wasn't pushed by women. It's pushed by men. And it's working. It's immediate. It's like had an immediate effect in Texas. Immediate. So what are the other things? So that's why I brought up maybe men need to look at sperm as personal property, and if a woman takes it, it's theft. And you know, people try to say 9/10 possession is 9/10 of the law, and technically it's not. That's why I pulled up some law firm that said that doesn't work, because you know, if you loan your car to your friend, he can't just take it, even though he's in possession of it. You're still the rightful owner of it. So we're still the rightful owner of sperm. But we get, our men and their sperm get treated like it's worthless. So if this Texas law can go on the book and be enforceable, there are other laws that can be enforced that will have women that could also start to alter their actions because there are consequences.
If more men just start walking away, that will also change. Because if you see now, there's an abundance of women starting to course correct other women. Granted, these are women that are, you know, past their prime dating years, but even some more younger, you know, because what they're finding out is these women in their 20s, they can't get dates. They can't, you know, they want, some of them want the prospect of marriage, but men are not stepping on that landmine anymore because they see what's happening to older men. And so you do have a small group of women who are trying to course correct other women, but it's only going to happen if you have more men walk away. But right now, you can go on TikTok right now and go to anyone's live, right? And all these females live, you'll have all these simps in their comment section. And these women, I'm not joking, they're literally just sitting there. They're just sitting there with their tits out or wearing some really short shorts.
Right.
And they'll be sitting next to their husbands. And these simps are still dancing over them. Just because she's got her tits out and she's wearing shorts. Like, dude, the same internet they're using to watch her, you can just go watch porn. Get your rocks off for your 2 or 3 minutes or whatever, and then go about your day. You don't have to sit here and spend your money on this woman that's already married who you have no chance of getting with.
Yep.
But it's gonna take that. It's gonna take more men walking away from women for things to change. Like I said, I've said in the black community, the only way things are gonna change is for black men to completely divorce themselves for black women for about 5 years. No fucking, no dating, no going out on dates, nothing. The black men to completely walk away from.
But men still have to grow balls. If they don't grow balls, that's just temporary. Someone says something interesting. He said, but the law isn't draconian because it relies on the citizens to enforce it. And it's so novel because it empowers the citizens. Perhaps there's a template here for other men's issues. Well, you know what? I think it's the most brilliant way to create a draconian law. How do you get people to buy into a draconian law? You pay them to implement it.
Yep, and that's what they did with that fine.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
And you will never see it as a draconian law because you're empowered by it. It would, yeah. So I mean, there.
If I know Charkeisha if I know she's pregnant, and I know she's planning on going to get an abortion in another state. And I know I can get $5,000 for snitching on her. I'm getting that $5,000. And if I snitch on enough for Charkeisha, I got enough money for a Porsche.
So there are still too many, people are saying there are too many blue pill men who will still date and take women out. And so here's the problem. Women they'll go out, they'll just go out with men they don't want. And they'll have no access to the guys who they really want who are not dating them. Which, I mean, it's actually been like that.
It's going on. Only 10. They did a study. Only 10% of men are having sex right now.
Well, most women, even there are a lot of women who don't marry their first choice, or even they're dating. They're getting a substitute because they can't get the person they believe they deserve. Women have become more delusional. So getting to this Texas is clamping down and saying, here are some boundaries you have to operate within. And not only are the boundaries enforceable, I'm going to get the average citizen to enforce it also.
And I will say this, that you did hit the nail on the head about the Latin community in Texas. They do not believe in abortions. They're still very much family oriented. And if you come to Texas and Oklahoma, you'll see these Mexican women. They don't mind getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and fixing their husbands, not just their husbands, their entire husband shift lunch, right? They don't mind doing that. They don't mind when they wash his clothes. They're very much about family, and they don't believe in abortion, and that's part of their Catholic upbringing. But as you said earlier about their population growing, and the minute they start growing and spreading more, you're gonna have more bills like that, the one in Texas and other states.
Yep. And so I don't know if you were here. You heard me talk about what's happening with the trans in El Salvador and what Mexicans are doing with the women.
I don't even understand why we call them trans. Let's just call it what they are. They're just gay men They're gay men in dresses. They've always been gay men in dresses.
So, but they're disappearing. So, as people with that mindset more heavily populate the U.S., they have a different way of dealing with feminism than men here. Very different.
Yeah, well, I mean, some
and men who support it.
Right. Well, they will say some. Well, they don't go after men who want them. What they do is try to convert heterosexual men, which is why they trick men, which is why also now in some states they've made it so that they can legally change their birth certificate to say they were born female. And so they do all this stuff to trick heterosexual men into having sex with them. When you're a gay man, why can't you just go find another gay man? That's what gay men have done throughout history. But now all of a sudden in 2021, you want to change the rules of the game. No, go find you a gay dude to fuck and be happy.
And there are consequences for that. There are some guys who don't take that very well.
Yeah, and so they're getting killed, and they want all the sympathy once something bad happens to them. No, you played a very stupid game. You want a stupid prize. Yep. Yes, congratulations.
Dangerous game.
Yeah, but yeah, it's going to happen more. As you see, and you're right. The Hispanics are the only one. The birth rates are declining for whites and blacks. Pretty much everybody, but the Arabs are still remaining intact in this country.
Arab population is growing also.
Yeah, Arab, and the Latins growing. Blacks are staying stagnant, but that's just due to black women being so sexually irresponsible. I mean, if you think about it, they lead in every negative sexual category there is: STDs, births out of wedlock, multiple births by multiple men, and abortions. Like, it's pretty impressive if you think about it. to lead in abortions and babies out of wedlock, like, that's a lot of fucking. That's a lot of irresponsible fucking. But I mean, what was it? The one story where 3 dudes got 26 women pregnant and had 81 babies.
Yep.
So but yeah, they're gonna take over. The Latins, they're gonna take over, and you're gonna see a paradigm shift because they're not gonna sell these Hollywood dreams that white men are selling to feminists.
Well, and as they, I want to say this in a short way. So they will move up into more leadership positions. So there's a guy who he died recently. His name is Clay Christensen, and Clay was a Harvard professor, and he made this observation about disruption. And he talked about how how the steel industries were disrupted, and he also talked about how Japan did the same exact thing. So what Japan did is they came in with cars that were not a threat to any of the big 3 automakers.
Right.
No one cared about those little tiny cars. They got better gas mileage, but they were ugly.
They were considered pieces of shit back in the 80s.
No one wanted them, and they were not a threat. So they came in at the lowest, at the bottom, right? So what they did is the business they took from the big 3 were the lowest margin cars. And so the big 3 said, "Hey, we don't care about those making those cars. Those are low margin cars for us anyway. So let the Japanese have them, and we'll stop manufacturing those really cheap cars." And so that's what Japan did. They made those low ones, but then they started making the Corolla and the Maxima, and then they started going upstream and making more expensive cars, and then they went to the Lexus and the Infinity, right? So they started in as a zero threat and no one cared, and they let them take the lower margin cars, and then they went up to the next level, and the big three could say, well, that's lower margin, we don't care about that. And next thing, boom, they're selling Infinities and Lexus, and they're head to head with Cadillac and Lincoln.
Right.
No one saw it. No one saw it coming, but it came over time. So what does the Hispanic community do? They come in at the lowest jobs. They pick strawberries and cabbage. No one cares about those jobs. You know what? You can take those jobs. We don't care. Okay, so we'll make pennies on a dollar and go back home to Mexico after we work. But then they came in and said, well, we'll be the busboy and the dishwasher. So that's the next level up from picking strawberries. And then they became the waiter and the receptionist. And then they became the salesman, and they work on assembly lines, and there's a supervisor and the manager. So they're doing the same thing that the Japanese companies. They came in at the lowest level, never a threat, no one cared, and they worked up, and eventually they'll be the CEOs. They have their television stations, so they own their media. They'll eventually be president of the United States, and they will occupy CEO of many companies here in the U.S. But no one sees it coming, and so I'm wondering if this Texas abortion.
Well, I think they predicted that by 2050 that's going to happen.
No, I'm saying I'm wondering if the Texas abortion law is impacted by knowing that that's what's coming. And so how do we buy time? How do we hold it off or mitigate it or better prepare? But it's going to happen. It'll happen the same way it happened with the Japanese cars. And they'll end up, look at now it's Toyota's the law. They make more cars than General Motors than anyone in the world.
Yeah, I think they do. I think the powers that be, they do know. Like I said, they predicted that to happen, and it was a while ago. This was, 5-6 years ago. They predicted, the Latins taking over by 2050, and they've just been scrambling, trying to figure out a way to get white women to start having more babies to keep that from happening.
Exactly.
There's only one answer. It's you have to take everything away from them and stop empowering them, because as long as they're empowered, they're going to feel that being a wife and having children, they feel that being a wife and having children is beneath them now.
Right.
And so now, why should they have become a wife and have children when they can just get on TikTok and show their tits and ass all day, or get on Instagram or whatever and be an Instagram thought and make hundreds of thousands from simps, doing that. Where's the incentive for them to have children? They view being a wife and having children as being tied down now, being that's you're holding them back from their potential. And they mismanage their money. They don't save their money. They don't know what to do with their money. They usually go broke.
Well, and in addition to that, many of them don't want to marry because they believe if they get married, they're going to risk their income. They don't want to risk possibly paying alimony. So I hear more and more women saying, "Hey, I make too much money to get married." Look at Oprah, perfect example. Not risking my assets through marriage.
Yeah.
They're being smart and saying, "Well, if women see it that way, why should I get married then?"
Yeah, they don't understand that part. Yeah, what's good for the goose isn't good for the gander when it comes to marriage for them.
Right.
But America's seen this problem coming a while ago, and they've been doing everything. But the problem is they keep giving women more and more power, and they think that's the solution, and it's not. It's just creating more and more degeneracy in women.
77% of consumer purchases are by women. So men use capital to build families, and building families build communities, and you build jobs, and you create jobs in your own community. And women are not doing that. They are buying stuff, and they have shoes that they've never worn. Clothes still have tags on them.
And that's why they want them in charge of children, because if you look at the Black community, look at all the men who act just like women, to the point where now these idiots are actually using Jordans as currency. Jordans and pit bulls. That's currency in the black community now. What the fuck? I've never viewed a pit bull as anything other than a fucking dog, but to them, they're like, they'll have, tons of pit bulls, they'll breed pit bulls, but when you ask them, like, where do they work? Walmart. Like, what? Or Jordans, they actually sell Jordans. When I was growing up, you didn't wear somebody else's shoes, you know what I mean? Unless because you don't want to get athletes with whatever kind of, foot disease they may have, unless you were absolutely dirt poor and your shoes, had a hole in it, and you may have had, a friend who had, more than one pair of shoes, and he just let you wear shoes to school just so you could have some shoes. I've seen that happen. But generally, you didn't wear your friend's shoes, but you see all these dudes, going out and buying somebody else's Air Force Ones or something. This is insane. When did we value tennis shoes so much? Why? But that's currency in the black community because of the women. The women are teaching these men to go out and spend all your money on stupid, trivial, meaningless things like clothes. They spend designer clothes, and in New York, in New York, New Jersey, you guys got a problem with men actually buying handbags now. That's insane.
Well, who was the first one to do that was LeBron James.
Yeah, I seen that picture with him walking around with his man. It was absolutely disgusting to see a man that big walking around with a fucking purse.
In the Bronx was the first time I saw a pawn shop that only did pawning with tennis shoes. Yes. How stupid is that? You go out, you buy, $200 tennis shoes. It was in the Bronx. It's now one is in Harlem. I don't know how many they have, and it's apparently it's a viable business that you come in with your tennis shoes. They give you some money, and someone else buys them.
And if you follow those people home, you're gonna follow them to the poorest, shittiest neighborhoods ever.
Yep.
And it's gonna be they're gonna live in a house run by a woman.
So the consumer mindset. Hey, just a quick side. I watched that movie about Aretha Franklin, and she must have been born in like 1942. So the movie starts in 52 when she's 10, and Forrest Whitaker is her father, and he is every bit of the old school father, every ounce of it. Like, he played it to the max. Like, it is a movie, and her husband, her first husband. It's a movie that clearly projects masculinity.
I might check it out.
Forrest Whitaker was like he was the pops that not only was he the father that laid down the law, he had custody of the children when he divorced his wife, and he laid it down. He laid down the law, and she married a guy just like her father. So I thought it was interesting that they showed that kind of masculinity.
Well, yeah. Well, they didn't have any choice because back then that's what it was. I mean, look at Joe Jackson. Do you think he was a soft father? No. Every last one of them Jackson kids has a story about Joe Jackson beating their ass.
Yep. So, so any other thoughts about this topic? So, I wanted to put out the facts, so I didn't give opinions, and then I gave some perspectives on socially, right? So long term, why is it being done? Follow the money. I didn't look at the money trail, but someone has got to be benefiting from, because this is going to negatively impact abortion clinics. So who's making out from this? Is it or is it really, what we're saying is that,
well, you know who abortion clinics are. If you knew who, I've already mentioned it basically, but if you know who abortion clinics are basically run by, then you'll also understand.
I got it. But no, so
Yeah.
if they are not thriving the way they were, so then where's if you follow the money, right? So you diverted money from abortion clinics to where? Like, is it to have a larger population, or is it really about not letting the Hispanic population get to that tipping point and too fast? Like you said,
I think that's it. What whites they fought too hard to steal this country, man. They're not going to give it up without a fight. And what's happening is here women are pretty much giving control of the country back to Mexico slowly, and they're trying to stop it. They pretty much got California back. Mexico pretty much has California back.
well, here's the other thing. So you can pass draconian laws and have the citizens enforce them. That's the other thing that comes out of this bill passed in Texas. And I don't know if maybe draconian law is too extreme for that, but you could actually test the market and see how you can enforce laws that people don't like. And God, do I want to do that?
The only downside to draconian laws, even though dare I say they might be necessary, the only downside is once they're on the table, it damn near takes a war to get them off.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
So
it takes bloodshed to get them off the table. Even though it's a tool. It's like your Hail Mary. It's like dropping the atomic bomb on Japan. Like, yeah, you don't want to do it, but once you do it, it's a bad path to go down. Because it's going to take bloodshed to get that back off the table. And I don't think women really understand, or these feminists really understand that once we get to that level, it's things are bad. That's why they're trying to take all the guns away from everybody now. It's that sort of stopped. And ammo prices are going back down. So yeah.
I've had this sense that everything I learned is.
Hey, Chris, I'm going to get ready to close this out, but I want to play something. It's going to take a few minutes. How long is this thing? It's only like 3 minutes long. I thought it was longer. Okay. So, yeah, what you're saying, right? You put draconian laws on the books. Once you put one on there and you get people to accept it, you can put a second and a third, and next thing, people are in prison. In the bars of the laws, you've conspired in enforcing them yourself, and don't
right. It's like that movie Judge Dredd.
Right. So here's I'm going to do a screen share. The title of this video is "Corruption is Legal in America," and this is what I'm saying about. Being a republic, and it's large landowners, wealthy families, and corporations. Because I'll let this guy explain this. So here we go.
For the last few years, I've had this sense that everything I learned as a kid about For the last few years, I've had this sense that everything I learned as a kid about how America's government works is completely wrong. But I had no idea how bad things actually were until I saw this one graph. Researchers at University looked at more than 20 years worth of data to answer a pretty simple question. Does the government represent the people? Now, this is what they found. This axis here represents public support for any given idea. On the left at 0% are ideas that not a single American wants. On the right at 100% are ideas that everyone supports. This axis represents the likelihood of Congress passing a law that reflects any of these ideas, from a 0 to a 100% chance. On this graph, an ideal republic would look like this. If 50% of the public supports an idea, there's a 50% chance of it becoming law. If 80% of us support something, there's an 80% chance. You get the idea. Now, most Americans would probably agree that, with a few exceptions, we should be as close to this ideal as possible. Unfortunately, the way America actually works doesn't even come close. Take an idea that nobody supports, literally nobody,
and it has about a 30% chance of becoming federal law. Now, take an incredibly popular idea, the most popular idea this country has ever seen, and there's also about a 30% chance of it becoming law. This means that the number of American voters for or against any idea has no impact on the likelihood that Congress will make it law. Put another way, and I'm just going to quote the Princeton study directly here, the preferences of the average American appear to have only a minuscule, near zero, statistically non-significant impact upon public policy. So if you've ever felt like your opinion doesn't matter and that the government doesn't really care what you think, well, you're right. But there's a catch. This flat line only accounts for the bottom 90% of income earners in America. Economic elites, business interests, people who can afford lobbyists, they get their own line. Look at how much closer their line is to the ideal. When they want something, the government is much more likely to do it. And when they don't, they have the power to completely block it from happening, no matter how much the rest of the country supports it. They get what they want, and guess who ends up paying for it? We pay for it with the most expensive healthcare in the world. We pay for it with a tax code that's a complete mess. We pay for it with internet that's slower and more expensive, with wasteful spending, a floundering education system, a catastrophic drug war, and 1 in 5 American children born into poverty. Almost every major issue we face as a nation can be traced back to this graph. How does this happen? Well, just follow the money. For the last few years, I've had this sense that everything I learned as a kid about
I wanted to share that. So that's, his last statement, follow the money. And that's what I think of Texas, follow the money. So on one hand, yes, it's a way to take a stand and say, women, we can put laws in place and you have to follow them. On the other hand, it's like you said, if it's even smells like draconian and gets us on a path, once we get on that, it's hard to stop. So even and if you look at Texas, if most people didn't want that law, it doesn't matter. According to this is according to what Princeton has studied over the past 20 years, not my opinion. So Princeton found if the majority of people don't want something, it doesn't matter if special interest or the business community or the wealthy family community want it, they will pass it. And so maybe that's what has happened in Texas. So it's kind of, you've got to look at both sides. There's a benefit, and long term, is this really the path we want to take? I can see the benefits hands down.
Right.
I do have some concerns about it.
Well, I'll say this: it never should have been that easy for women to kill a baby in the first place.
Right.
And I think they made it by taking just the sheer shame away from it by calling it something other than murder. Because when you call it abortion, well, and you call it a fetus, you're not really humanizing that life.
Right.
And so when it's not humanized, then abortion, it's just a thing, it's not murder. It's just, it's no different than you going to take a crap, and flushing it down the toilet. But that's how some women look at it, They don't honestly even look into, what is actually involved in the procedure until after it's done, and then they get all depressed and everything, So
exactly.
it never should have been this easy, but this law, I don't even think this law is too draconian. I really don't. I think it's just what should have been in place in the first place, when they came up with abortion. But I think that it does open the door for a more draconian abortion bill to be passed.
Hey, you know who's going to benefit from this? I bet that here's the stock to buy. Like Procter and Gamble, whoever sells pregnancy tests. So since you have to have an abortion within 6 weeks, There are going to be more women buying pregnancy tests. That's
Well,
that's who's going to benefit from this.
yeah, well, and not only that, think of all the baby products that Procter and Gamble makes, all the baby powders, the baby oils, and all that. So yeah, it's
Right.
yeah.
But pregnancy tests are going to go. I bet you that's what's going to go up sky high, because if you want an abortion within 6 weeks, you need to find out sooner rather than later. So probably women are going to stock up on pregnancy tests.
And Plan B pills. They're just gonna start popping Plan B pills like Tic Tacs. After they have sex, every time after they have sex, they're gonna start popping Plan B pills.
Yeah, that I don't know who. Well, that whoever makes birth control and Plan B, that's some corporation. So
Yeah.
someone still benefits, right? So someone's going to benefit from this. Follow the money.
Follow the money. Yeah.
Hey, Tony G, thanks a lot, man. Thanks. I'm glad you got some value out of that. Yep. Someone said dehumanizing words they use: clump of cells, parasite, virus, fetus. Yep. All things that they use.
Yeah.
And up to 24 weeks. So that's in 24 weeks, a baby can live outside of uterus and survive. So
Right. I think it's up to men to start putting money into technology and creating artificial womb. So I mean, you just have to find a way not to deal with women. You know.
the artificial womb is functional.
Right. And so we need to put that in mass production and get that going, and because that's it. If we could, women need us to survive.
No
We don't
question.
need them. We really don't need them.
Exactly.
So if we had the artificial womb and not deal with them, problem solved. We could tell them, hey, this is what you wanted.
Well, I last week I suggested that the ladies, if they don't like it, pack up, go move to an island, build your own civilization. Except I warn you, the pirates are going to show up, and they are going to turn your island into a whorehouse island. I promise you. Don't call us, but the pirates are going. That the pirates are going to show up on ships, and they are going to get you.
They'll be showing up in rowboats. We're in rowboats with single shot shotguns, and it'll be one. They'll just take the whole fucking island.
So yeah, any last words you want to say, man?
No, man, it's been a great show, man. Great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, for everyone that hey, Chris, always love to hear your thoughts, love your directness, boldness. We even had a woman in Australia listening on Instagram. She made quite a few comments because I wanted to know what was going on and what they.
To this show?
She was, yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I'll talk about a shit show, Australia. Oh Jesus Christ! If you're a man, don't ever move to fucking Australia or New Zealand. And before you move there, you might as well just castrate yourself before you move there.
So I don't think she was the only woman listening, but I don't know how long they stuck around for this. But yeah, anyway. Listen, this was on Fridays. I do it like a YouTube and chill. I like to kind of sit back, talk about sex and intimacy. And of course, if you can't talk about abortion without sex. So
right.
we kept it in the tradition of YouTube and chill Friday nights, talking about sex and intimacy. I got a little more into politics than I've ever done. But that last clip that I showed, you guys take heed to that, because Princeton found that what the average people want in law and policy is insignificant. That's not my words. It's not the speaker. It's Princeton that found this over the past 20 years. So
politics have been inserting themselves in sex for the last 60, 70 years anyway. And like I said, with this COVID vaccine, they've literally told women not to have sex with men and let them have the vaccine.
It's not politics. It's like that guy said, his last words were follow the money. It's not politicians that are doing this. it's when you talk about the vaccine, it's the pharmaceutical companies that want this vaccine taken. Well, I don't have facts. There are rumors that the countries that didn't want the vaccines in their country, all of those presidents are dead now. So
Yeah, I can see that.
so that's pharma, big pharma money. And you can follow the money. It's easy to follow the money on the vaccine. But for this Texas law, I'm P&G and whoever is making pregnancy tests and diapers and all that stuff. Yeah, that's a good baby formula. You guys are cutting into our money by not having babies. So damn it, you're gonna have them. So like it or not.
Right. Well, here's the other thing. It's anytime the government does something, yeah, they pass this bill, but it's a distraction of they're trying to distract you from something.
No question.
And that's what I'm more fearful of, rather than any fallout from this bill. Because it's pretty historic to get this bill passed, and it's a good thing and all that. But what are they trying to keep us from focusing our attention on by passing this and putting this, up front like that? There's something big that coming down the pipe that I'm worried about.
100% with you. Yep, I actually talked about that a little earlier. So, hey, Chris, thank you. Love your support, man. Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Great comments in the chat. Apparently, this was a hot topic, and I'm glad we talked about it. And thank you, Texas, for making this a current event. So, have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy your evening. And I'll talk to you soon. I'll be back Sunday with something just as provocative. So take care, everyone. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.